This conference will now be recorded.
Assuming you hear the bing. Call this meeting November 3rd.
Make sure your, I didn't turn the microphones on. Make sure your buttons are up, please.
Yeah, we're going to get this thing started.
Go.
Okay, doke. I'll call this November 3rd meeting of the Gateway Services Community Development District to order. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was the bing. Remind everybody, if you've got a cell phone, please turn it to silent for the meeting. And I think the first order is roll call. Let the record show that Supervisor Geppert, Supervisor Tinkle, Supervisor Walsh are present. Doug will be here, I guess, at 5 o'clock. And we need a motion allowing Mr. Guy to participate.
Under ordinary circumstances, I should.
Exceptional circumstances.
Exceptional circumstances.
You make that motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay,
Thank you.
welcome on. Approval of the final agenda. Additions or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to? I'll second. All in favor, aye. Opposed? Okay, public comment. We have.
All right, first we have Bob Lewis. He gave you a handout about the model car racing. Ryan, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, first I'd like to thank you for putting the gate at our boat lake. Very, very helpful. The only negative side of being there, there's a 10-year-old kid who keeps beating us when we are sailing on Sunday. Haven't figured out how to beat him. But anyway, one of the questions that keeps coming up is there any place around here where we can run cars? This is a typical radio controlled electric car, makes very little noise. And so I said, well, I talked to the CDD board of supervisors about the sailing. I'll see if we can get a car track as well. I'm the designer of the car track. I work with the Cape Coral Seahawks Park folks, and we created a track up there. I designed it. On the second page of the handout, the top picture is the final product of our track. The first thing that we did to prove that this would be a viable option was we got their permission just to put down irrigation piping on the ground. We mowed the grass close and we created a track. So that bottom picture is just running on the grass and the dirt. And that's what I kind of propose that we could start off with and see what kind of interest there would be in the community. On the next page is a picture of what the lanes look like with the cars on it. They were posed to make it look really nice. But the big picture that I need you to consider is the picture on the bottom. That shows the pool area and the big field that I assume is owned by Gateway. And if we could figure out some way that we could put a track over there, that would be great. If you have an alternative site, that would certainly be something we could consider. I've driven all over Gateway and I've really not found anything else that looks like it's public access. So perhaps your people would know something else. And so I seek your permission to work with your parks people to go ahead and develop this concept. Thank you.
Questions?
You envision this as being at little or no cost to the board, or?
Initially, if there was going to be a cost, it would be somebody has to mow out there. And so they mow anyway. So, we would just designate the area. So whatever cost that would be. If this becomes very popular and we say, because originally Cape Coral folks had zero cost. And then we said, look at all the people that are involved. Would you go ahead and buy the clay? And we'll go ahead and put it down. So Cape Coral bought the clay, we put it down.
That might be a future consideration.
That would be
Right now, this is pretty much no cost.
Pretty
Other
much
than
right
that.
now, it's no cost, because I appreciate the fact that you have a lot of other expenses. So we're just asking, we have to have a way to get through the gate and a designated area that at least we can put the piping down. Eventually, you have a fee for people that want to use the swimming pool. If this really develops into something nice and Gateway goes ahead and puts down clay, will have something to do with the maintenance, you could certainly charge a fee for the utilization of the track as well.
What kind of slope do you have to have?
No slope, could be
No
flat,
slope, because
could just be
I thought
flat.
that was a little bit of a slope from east to west out there on that site.
That won't be a factor.
That's not bad.
No.
Not significant.
No.
Okay. And then you're going to strip the grass, I assume.
Well, all we would do, we would start off, we would have it mowed close, maybe an inch to the ground. And then we would take the irrigation piping, which is like 4 or 6 inches in diameter at our expense, put that down in the shape, of a track that people can follow. And that would stay there.
Is that sort of like a wall?
It would be a
defining the
barrier.
track. It's a barrier.
It's a barrier, right?
Okay. And if that soil is sandy, I've never seen one of those things go, but I can see what they look like.
Yeah.
I would think that they would rut sand really bad without clay.
Well, that's why when we first started off, we had air blowers and we blew all the sand out, or we washed them with a hose. And after this got very popular, we went to the city and said, can't we put clay down and we'll co-venture it? So they said yes.
I just have one quick question. When you say we, do you mean you yourself? Do you mean you guys who hire a company to do it?
No, we had our club up there, RC Hawks Airplane Club, took it upon our club as an activity to add the car track. But we had to work with the city of Cape Coral, with their parks department, in order to get that site designated and permission from them to modify the ground for our purpose.
Okay, but still the question, who would be doing the work, I guess? Like if you were to get permission, like we will be doing this work at our cost?
I would imagine whoever does your mowing, if we could just say to them, mow it closer, either that, or we'll just find somebody to come in at our expense and have it mowed down. So
What's the cost like somebody's going to ask, what's the cost to get into this and do this? What are you investing?
you can get a vehicle like this for $200. It includes everything, the battery, the car, the radio.
Everything.
And this is a little higher performance. This was $400, but yeah, for $200, a kid could get into this. And a lot of them already have cars.
If the board
Staff impact, yeah.
if the board is interested in us potentially pursuing this as a small pilot project, please know that the proposed admin building is going to be at the Commons. So we have a lot of other factors to look into. Not saying that we're not able to work with the gentleman. We would just have to find a viable location and make sure it's cost effective, and that it wouldn't take up too much staff time, as we have limited staff right now.
Noise. How much noise is coming off this?
Since they're electric, pretty much nothing.
Oh, they're electric. Okay.
Yeah, these are all electric. We would not permit gas cars. That would be, they would all be electric, battery powered.
I'm not gonna lie, I have 2 of them. But he's right, there's not much noise. Again, we would have to look at the logistics of the sizing and what is expected of the district, and then set the expectations. I'm sure Tony's got some liability concerns at some point that he wants to chime in, but if this is something the board is open to, we can work out those details and come back to you.
What's the timeline for us getting a footprint for the development of that property? What's
Your
that
next
architect
board,
looking
your
at?
next board meeting.
Next board meeting. So we would have an idea that if it wasn't able to go exactly where you had located, I mean, what is it, 17 acres out there? We surely can
To
find.
find a
someplace.
common area.
We surely can find
That's
something.
something, the details we could work out.
Okay.
So we
Yeah,
just wait.
or
Okay.
if there's a different area that I'm not aware of,
Yeah.
open for suggestions. But there is interest in the community for this activity.
How about the fun park? How about doing that there?
Well, let them look at all the places, yeah. Wherever.
Okay, we can look at that as an option.
Fun part is
What
that
about the
where
church?
behind the church?
Yes.
There's private houses behind there. The cars don't make noise, but the crowd does. Because they're cheering, they're clapping, and
We can work with the
Okay.
gentleman.
so I don't know
But you,
if they would like it.
not necessarily looking for a blacktop or a hard surface.
That would be great if you would say to me, you could go right out here to the plant. Right on the other side of the gate is already an asphalt oval. That would be absolutely
So
perfect.
you could go on asphalt.
Oh,
This
absolutely.
is just keeps the cost down going the other way. with the
Asphalt would be much better.
Okay.
Yeah, asphalt's much better. And you have an oval out here, which is absolutely perfect. I don't know if you'll let us use it.
Let's let staff explore it. It looks good to me.
Just, I'd like clear direction from the board if,
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100.
We support the concept. We'd like your input.
Okay.
I'm all for it.
okay.
We need a vote,
Fine.
Okay, no,
just a consensus. We
we
don't
need
need
a
a vote.
vote. All
We,
set, all
I
in favor,
heard
say
3
aye.
yeas,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
we're good.
We'll wait
We're ready?
Okay.
to wait for
We'll,
next
Thank you.
week and yeah.
okay, we'll work with,
Thank you.
Just
we'll be,
let me know the
have your
details
contact.
later. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Rod Senior, continued public hearing.
Should I be speaking at 5 o'clock?
Yeah, is it going to be on the bond validation? Yeah, probably be best at 5. Yeah.
Okay, then next is David Ruth with a question: who is responsible for quality of work improvements in this district? Reminder, 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Dave Ruth, and I live at 11359 Championship Drive. And probably should have just called Chelsea on this one, but I'm just wondering if there's a list of current projects and future projects. I know there is, but I'd like to get a copy of that, just to kind of like keep an eye on what's happening in the neighborhood. I'm an architect, and I've always been part of things like that in my community.
You mean like capital improvement project?
Just any kind of project, like, an example was they put in a couple pieces of concrete over at the Gateway Commons pool, and there really needed to be three panels. One panel is completely broken up and just looks really awful. And we got 2 new pieces and we got 1 bad piece. And I'm going, who's responsible for the quality of that? I know you're always out looking around. I see you driving around looking at things all the time. But, I'm just assuming that there's one person that would walk around and say, this isn't acceptable. We're spending our money on getting things fixed, and we want to make sure that it's going to last a long time. So,
Yeah, the only differentiation you would need to make is that you're living over in Gateway Greens. Our HOA has projects, but what you're describing are CDD projects.
okay, yeah.
Sometimes the
I
two
don't-
look like they're together.
Well, sometimes it's hard to understand who's doing which. Okay, but I think, you guys, I know you guys are quality oriented, but everybody here sees quality different. Okay, but so I would assume there's one person that's gonna go around at the end of all this. I don't know. You do so much. I don't know if that's you or not.
Would you like
but
me to answer this question?
Yeah, go
We
ahead.
do what?
So we have monthly reports that go out with project updates, but each department director oversees their projects. So, but if you have concern, you can always reach out to customer care and we can get eyes.
Customer care.
Yeah,
Okay.
Customer care.
And there is a list of our projects on our website as well.
Yes,
There's
the
a link
bigger
right on the
one.
homepage. Yep,
Okay.
like the bigger district projects, they're on there
I
as
may
well.
need help with somebody to help me find
We
this.
can do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
I don't have any other comments.
Anybody in the audience?
Nobody online has
Nobody
asked,
online?
and no email or fax.
Moving on, local achievements and recognitions. Do we have any this week?
This is the opportunity for you guys to address any of those.
Bobby, anything?
No.
Bob? I don't have anything either. Okay, Bill? Do you have anything on this? Local achievement and recognitions?
Bill Guy.
Bill
Actually,
Guy, yeah. Okay,
I'll
thank
take
you.
it back.
You take it
You know
back.
what? I think we should recognize Ed Ryan for the amazing job that he's been done at the beach. I think he has $300,000 he has collected, so I think we should be a shout out for him. I don't, is it Beach Talk Radio, right? That Chelsea knows more about it.
Yes.
What's he doing?
So Ed Bryan is a Gateway resident that is helping, that has a podcast called Beach Talk Radio that is helping to get funds back to the residents of Fort Myers Beach and help in any way he can with the businesses and things like that. And he and his wife alone have raised over $300,000 with their followers on their, as he likes to term it, dinky podcast. So
Right?
Absolutely.
he's one of our local Gateway residents. So
So what do we need to do other than these words? Do we have a certificate or something? Or
no, this is just a
Recognizing.
point
Just
to put it on
recognize,
record.
okay.
Recognize.
Moving on, advisory committee items and reports. What do we have here?
I don't believe we have any advisory committees that
I don't
submitted
see anything.
for a report.
Moving on. Advise or approval of minutes. We have I didn't realize that we talked that much or somebody talked that much. The length of the minutes of that, that meeting of the workshop. Did anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes? They were very detailed.
None.
Nope.
I didn't have anything either. Motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Would you have a tape recorder going on this? Or how did
Yes.
How did you remember all
Yes, tape recorder.
that? Okay.
I'm good. I'm not that good.
Consent agenda items. Did we have any?
No.
Let's see, I didn't see them. District engineer, Stephen, you on?
They are not here at this meeting.
They're not here today?
They'll be at the public hearing.
Oh, they're coming for the public hearing. Okay. Administrative agenda items. Item A, trees for under FBL easement north towards Stony Brook. This is the strip where we took out the oaks
Yes, sir.
and the replacement plan.
Yes, sir. And
Okay, and it's in the board book, along with some sketches and pretty detailed information.
yep, so
Who's making the,
we have, I'll introduce it over to Ronnie Simpson here in just a second. But this item, I guess is, yeah, let me, so this item goes back months, I guess over a year. And so what was asked of staff was to look at alternative options that could be placed in this area. It is staff's recommendation to leave it as is, but we did ask Mr. Simpson to look,
as is meaning do nothing?
do nothing, leave it as grass, as a grass strip. We did ask Mr. Simpson to look at Simpson?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Alternative options that are not oak trees that we could put back that would not do damages to the road. So we have he's got a brief PowerPoint with some options for your review and consideration.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, how are you guys today? Thanks for having me.
It's
I think she's gonna get my PowerPoint up.
These are going to match the pages that are in the board book.
Yeah, you can zoom out on this.
While he's waiting for the PowerPoint to come up.
Okay.
Maybe.
But they are the same.
Yes,
as
it's
what
the
we're seeing.
exact
Okay,
same, yeah.
thank you.
Nope.
That is not the right thing. All right,
Just-
we're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to do a lot of sliding with this to get it to fit in there.
More, I think you go down pages.
Go down.
Yeah, go down. I think his PowerPoint's in here.
Why can this go here?
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. So basically the challenges were oak trees were planted along and they were damaging the roads and sidewalks. So what I was tasked with is finding a tree that would be acceptable for the area, but would reduce the risk to the sidewalk and the road. We also had challenges with FPL having distribution lines, and there's limitations on the height of the trees that can go under distribution lines. So what we did under the distribution lines is we looked at crepe myrtles, which are already on the other side of the road as well. And the reason for crepe myrtles is because their growth rate, as well as the ability to manage their overall height. So you have the ability to reduce those like you're currently doing with the existing. So we spec those in for underneath the easement, and then along the roadway north of the access road, we looked at cassia trees. The challenge there is we learned that on the back side of the sidewalk or the walkway was not owned by Gateway, so putting the trees there were going to be difficult. And putting the trees in between the sidewalk and the roadway was going to reduce the lifespan, where you guys may actually only get 10 or 15 years out of the tree there before it does start becoming a minor issue for the sidewalk.
And that's a root issue.
Yeah, a root issue. Yeah, for the sidewalk and the road. And one of the things talking with staff that we found out is with nothing there, all the structural issues DOT is glad to take care of. But the minute something goes there, they want to start discussing whose problem it is. So we wanted to make sure we stayed away from the roadway. And naturally that would put everything on the backside of the sidewalk. Unfortunately, that is not Gateway's property.
Are you talking about the disposal? Is that what the property belongs to?
Actually, I don't believe it belongs to.
I think it's the Stony Brook Association is what I think it is.
Yeah, I think it's Stony Brook from the fence to the walkway.
Tony, would you like to opine on that?
There's a, excuse me, a tract in the Stony Brook plat called tract B. Tract in the Stony Brook plat called B, like in Boy 14. And it's primarily a landscape buffer tract. And it's hard to describe, and maybe unless you look at LIPA or the plat, that it starts just south of the condominium on the west side, and then it's kind of large and odd shaped, and then it goes north southwesterly, and I think it's 10 feet wide or so. I go ahead, look at the plat, I have it, and it runs parallel to the right of way of Gateway Boulevard. We have the survey that was performed when the district gave its roadway segments to Lee County. And on the survey, it depicts the asphalt path and the concrete path that are outside in the road right of way, but outside the paved surface. So you have the paved surface, curb, grass, 8 foot, I think, asphalt path or concrete path, then a very thin strip at times between that asphalt concrete path and the edge of the right of way until you get to B14. And it goes on for quite a distance.
So is that Stony Brook within the 120-foot right of way?
No, the B14 is outside the right of way.
The right of way.
That's correct.
So then it goes from the western right of way of ours.
Correct.
Well,
of Lee County's right of way. That's to
the dump. There's nothing in between other than it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing else, and I think it's 10 feet. I think
I think it varies in width.
Well,
down through there.
It starts off kind of wide, then it narrows down to about 10 feet, then runs south.
We have the map if you'd like to see it after.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I knew that was up there. My only thought is that I saw some of the trees look like they were being proposed in the strip between the sidewalk and the curb. And when you're talking these trees having 20, 25 foot diameter, we're going to be doing nothing but chopping those trees all the time to keep them out of the road.
Well,
I mean, it'll just look like a straight edge along the road.
Initially, when you start looking at overall height, going back to our initial plan, these trees would when we talked about effective tree life, like we had discussed before, effectively these trees would never see that canopy spread of that size before the replacement program was in place. That's the only way you're going to have trees in those locations, is to have an ongoing removal replacement program where basically the trees always stay the same size through removal replacement. It's an effective means to have a tree in a place where you can't have a tree.
So
And
you're stymieing its growth.
basically, yes, you're basically saying you plant them and before you remove them, you plant in between and then you remove the originals. And when somebody rides down the road, there's always a beautiful tree there, but the tree always essentially stays the same size. So you would never see that full canopy growth of a mature tree.
Mainly
But
the
did I
trimming.
hear if we went to the other side, the area we don't currently have, and put them in, then it could just grow?
Yeah, you would have it would lengthen your time span of the
So
tree.
would it make sense to go for an easement from whoever owns it, or?
Well, we'd have to get a permission from, I think it's
Stony
Stony Brook,
Master Association.
Master Association
Doesn't
to
that seem like
install them. This would be installing them on the backside of the sidewalk.
Correct.
Back
Correct.
the block.
And I mean, and that literally buys you years, and it gets it away from your DOT.
That seems like a better
Concerns.
way to go. I mean, I don't know that Stony Brook, how they feel about that 10 feet, but What the
To
heck?
them, that 10 foot is just plain down worthless. It's
Yeah.
good for nothing.
except to grow trees and save us
Yeah.
money long term.
The
Well,
thing-
benefit them the most visually.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
the
we'd have to be
appearance-wise.
looking at that whole strip along the
Exactly.
dump.
Yeah.
The thing I saw that I liked was the portion probably about 700-800 feet that's within the FPL easement on the diagonal.
Mhm.
We got to do something in there to hide that. That look is just disgusting. It's been disgusting for 30 years. But you could put those trees in and then alternatively put something like the, what do you call the one, when you scratch it, leaves a
Clusis.
Calusa, yeah. Put those in between it. Now you've got a blockade. You can't see that FPL easement. And if you couldn't see it, it'd be a lot better off because it looks horrible.
The key there is going to be getting FPL's blessing.
Yeah, well, the big thing that ever since I've been talking about it is that their big concern is 15 feet.
Well, and we reached out to them when we were developing the plan, and they would not even entertain having a conversation about it.
Why is that?
They didn't return any emails. I'm assuming that probably had to go up the chain of command, and nobody locally wanted to commit to it. But it just
Just
they
horse trade.
We could help with that.
yeah the emails just went unresponsive.
Okay.
And I wasn't surprised to that. I mean, that's kind of normal.
So what are we at, Chelsea? We back to the drawing board at this point in time?
No,
for
I don't,
further-
I don't think so. We just need clear direction from the board on how you'd like to proceed. If you'd like to do a pilot project of the FPL, we can start that process. One of the things that, with these two trees that were selected, you'll notice on the east side of Gateway Boulevard, they're already there.
Yep. Yeah, the crepe myrtles are there.
So we would literally be mirroring what's on the east side
To
and
the
putting
west side.
to the west side. So,
Within the FPL easement?
Yes.
yes.
Would we select one or the other, or would we alternate them, or would you have
No, in
zones of
the
5 of one, 5 of the other?
in the FPL, they would be all crepe myrtles, and the reason for that is your ability to manage that height. Where the Cassias, you can't top them in essence, but the crepe myrtles you can top, and it doesn't have a negative impact on the tree.
And so just for point of reference, the bottom figure is the area that we're discussing. So it would be the emergency access road and then,
South.
yes. So if the board would like us to put
That's what I
together a
thought, so.
plan and proposal for this pilot project for that area, and begin the FPL, request,
Conversations.
approval, whatever that may be, we can come back with a cost proposal on how much this would cost to plant and run irrigation, and
And-
permitting in time.
And your 25-foot spacing recommended?
Yeah, I mean, and you can expand that. I mean, that's entirely up to you guys.
Okay.
I mean, that was just basically a starting point. I mean, that can be expanded to 50 foot. It can be done to match what's across the street.
Because I think it's about 750 feet on the diagonal across that. So that would be, what, 30 trees?
Something along those lines, yeah. So
Okay. But the FPNL, I think we're okay on. But
Oh,
the
yeah.
portion up by Stony Brook, is that the top photo of the beginning?
Yes, sir.
It's right after you go across the new connector
Well,
road.
can we give staff
That's,
direction to explore with Stony Brook, how they feel about it? Because it would be better to do it outside of
I agree.
the sidewalk.
So
Yeah,
say
and
the
if
both
west
they-
things
west of the
simultaneously.
sidewalk.
And
Yeah.
if they agree, then we'll do all of it, yeah.
So
agree.
one additional item, we did reach out to Lee County DOT just to ask them, if this is their road, if they were to do any plantings there, what would they do? And they said do nothing. So, but I think the back of walk is a happy medium, and that we could hopefully pretty quickly with the FPL easement, since we do own that property as of 3 meetings ago, get this implemented fairly quickly. But we can work with Ronnie on getting pricing and proposals and putting together a turnkey plan on doing this pilot project, and then having the discussions with Stony Brook Master Association.
Tony, when we do this segment that's across the FPL easement, traversing it, are we in the 120-foot right of way, or are we on the back side of it? Where the right of way goes through the FPL easement,
Mhm.
it's 60-foot half right of way, as I understand, 120-foot full, 60 half. Are these trees going to go on the back side of the 60, or are they going to go within the 60?
I don't know. I can't tell from these plans.
I couldn't tell either.
Well, that's something we can look
Okay.
into.
Yeah, because they can take the survey and scale off
Yes.
and indicate, kind of match the plans that are in the meeting book
Yep.
with the survey. and
Yeah,
see where they-
initially we wanted,
It's very narrow though. I mean, some areas it's probably 2 to 4 feet max between the edge of sidewalk and the edge of the right of way.
yeah, initially we were hoping for input from FPL and we didn't get that. So that was kind of, we were kind of hoping that they would be allowing us to kind of put them where we wanted versus that, and we didn't get the feedback yet that we.
Everybody agreed that that's the work we
Yeah,
want.
let's
staff to
move
do.
forward with the FPL and the approaching Stony Brook for their portion.
With these two, with the
With-
trees that
with
are
these two.
presented.
Yeah, and at the same time, I'd like to look again in that FPL easement is between the trees, whether we go 25 feet, 30 feet, or 12, I don't care what distance spacing, something to hide that
As much of that as
horrible
possible.
looking deal.
You mean like a low growing plants
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah.
Bushes,
Shrubs.
edge, whatever.
Like a Calusa would be perfect, because you could grow as high as you want it to go.
Yeah, or cut them as low as you.
Cut them as low as you want.
Yeah.
it to
Okay,
go.
let's, they have come back with the
And there's
recommendation
that, you don't.
after they get the cost and
Okay.
permission.
Yeah,
Okay.
So we'll work on bringing this back at a future meeting. I don't know how quickly we'll be able to turn it around, but as soon as we have it available, we'll get it back in front of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody agree with that?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Any more questions for me?
Thank you. Thank
No,
you.
thank you.
Did you have by chance a cost? What was the order of magnitude of the cost for what you had proposed?
I did not do any cost analysis, just for the simple fact that, I wanted to kind of see what the appetite was beforehand. So
We'll get that next.
Yes,
Okay.
you will.
Taking the medicine when this
Look at 'em
spoonful at a
smile.
time.
there you go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item B, appointments, Pelican Preserve Advisory Committee.
So
We sure
the,
got a lot of information on these people. I felt like that we were bringing them into the CIA or something.
so
Yeah, I've
The-
never seen anything like
the
that.
resolution that you approved at the last board meeting, resolution 2023-01,
As amended.
the amended one, yes, approved the existing members. This is more of a ratification and getting the community used to applying with the application. So you, in essence, already approved the members that are sitting on the PPAC board. This is just a ratification, and so you know.
And we approved them for 2 years from the point of adoption of the resolution.
Yes,
But
but
now we're going to try and stagger that in some way to,
we will work on staggering. That way the committee isn't wiped clean in one
Yeah.
swoop.
okay.
I saw Carol had wanted to stay on for another 2 weeks or whatever. Have they got a replacement? Or
That'll be at their
cross
meeting
that
next
bridge
week.
when we
We'll,
get to it?
we'll do, they have a meeting on the 10th. The PPAC
Next
has a meeting on
Thursday.
the 10th, and they'll choose her replacement at that meeting. And then that'll come back to you on the 17th for approval.
Yeah, and recognizing that depending on if she wants to stay, she does not have, it's on, believe it or not.
Yeah.
You're just quiet.
It's that Mrs. Pankow, she takes office as a supervisor on November 22nd. She's a member elect as of November 8th. She can still be on PPAC up until the 21st, where she would need to resign from PPAC. So I just want to make sure that that's known.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to approve the 7 members who voluntarily serve on PPAC for a staggering term of 2 years per resolution 2301.
I'll second that.
Any other questions, discussion? Bill, anything?
No, I think it's well done.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Doug is on the call. He just needs a request for extenuating circumstances.
I so moved.
Exceptional.
Exceptional. Sorry. We'll get the E word right one day.
I'll make a motion due to the
I'll
exceptional
second.
circumstances. We allow Doug to participate.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Come on board, Doug.
Yeah, we weren't expecting you before 5.
Yeah, I'm dialing in while I'm driving, so we'll see how that goes.
Okey doke. Next item C, contract renewal for Cross Creek Environmental to provide gateway stormwater pond and flow area maintenance. We have a ton of paperwork on that.
Yes.
Questions?
How does this plan stack up to the existing plan for the same sort of work that is being done in Pelican by, I think it's Extreme Divers?
From my understanding, this is the maintenance of the ponds.
Oh, just, not cleaning up piping or anything?
Nothing.
Forget
was-
it.
No.
I take back, I read it and
When
I
you say
didn't get it.
it's not what?
Not the pipe cleaning and things.
Oh, no, no,
This
no.
is just
No,
the
this is
pond.
just the
regular
pond.
This is
pond.
pond
Yes.
maintenance.
Okay.
And
No comment.
for the public's knowledge, this contract did not increase from last fiscal year.
And it's a 3-year contract.
And we're renewing them yearly, but yes, it is, they're holding their pricing for 3 years.
Bob, any comments?
Well, there was a ton of information.
Yeah.
Is the predicate for this the bank of the pond, or is it the volume of water in the pond? Or is it both? In Pelican, we have 2 providers, and we have to do it 2 different ways. With the old, whatever aquagenics or whatever they are now, it was based on volume of water in a pond. And for when Solitude did it, and I don't know if they're still doing it, but that was based on linear feet. We were okay with that,
I thought this was
but
linear.
it was
feet.
different.
Linear,
And
I
I'm just,
thought it was
so
linear.
my only question is,
Linear
which is
feet,
it?
I'm of the.
Linear feet was cheaper for
Yeah.
us.
I
I believe that's how we have it.
Yes, I believe that's the case.
Okay.
That's how it was bid a year ago.
Okay.
I didn't think anything about this when I first read this earlier in the week until yesterday, and I happened to be over in the Hidden Links issuing new transponders for people over there. And a couple of people came up to me and said, "You're on the board, aren't you?" And I said, "Whenever you say that, you know,
Get ready.
what's coming. When are you going to do something about our pond?" And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "We haven't seen anybody out here working on that pond forever." And so I looked at the contract. The contract makes it clear they're supposed to be out there once a month. And so unless these people just don't see them when they're there, but I took a picture. I'll pass it around to everybody. That pond is in bad shape relative to, we don't even come close to the escarpment. It's not 8 inches, it's about 3 feet. It's absolutely
But not
horrible.
related to the vendor though.
Well, that was my
Pass it
issue.
down.
The thing is that in the report, as I read the report, I'm sorry, it showed it that the slope of the banks on this particular pond were 6 to 1. Well, if that's 6 to 1, I think they got the 6 and the 1 backwards. It's 1 to 6. I don't know, has anybody been reporting, or has Cross Creek reported the problems they're having there? And then the littorals, that's not my vision of
In
what
all
good
likelihood, they
littorals
don't know
are.
there's a problem.
I'm sorry?
In all likelihood, they don't even realize that it's a problem.
Well, but they
Well,
approach
I'm wondering,
Ed,
are
so-
they there? Have they been there? Because these guys act like, and
Can I have this?
oh yeah,
What, you said this was in Hidden Links?
yeah, it's right behind the condos in Hidden Links.
Okay.
It's the pond right downstream of the Weir, Weir
Okay.
4.
We will follow up with the vendor, and then we'll also go get eyes on this. But please encourage any residents, send us an email to customer care. We'll get out there and we'll get eyes on it.
There, unfortunately, our people wouldn't know customer care from something else. They just don't, they don't understand.
Well,
that.
see,
They don't get it.
in
They
the
don't
pro
get it.
forma of the ponds work group within Pelican, there's about 25 people in that subgroup, some of which are assigned certain number of ponds, and they do monitor the suppliers.
Well, the one thing I didn't know to what extent staff had checked all
Yeah.
these around and verified this. I didn't see anything that I went through that entire contract and all those attachments. I didn't see anything that was alarming that even given any indication that, hey, you've got a problem in this pond. Now, residents, a lot of them think that the stuff growing on the edge, me included a couple of years ago, think they're weeds. The majority of that stuff that's there in that pond, gone up a notch, that I can tell they are littorals, but they sure as hell don't look like they're very healthy. Now, this could be a result of the hurricane. Could be
Very,
the hurricane.
very
Yeah,
well.
but-
We'll get eyes on it.
But the
and-
observers go and first of all, confirm that something is
Yeah,
being done.
somebody needs to look at it, but
And then if the littorals get, and mainly it's when they get too big, that observation is reported back. And then the supplier is told to cut it back to the designated 6 to 8 feet.
well, unless somebody else has an issue, all of the other pricing and all the other information look fine to me, but I just didn't know if I saw this in one pond, do I need to go out and check other ones?
Well, when
Should I
Elle
be
was doing
concerned
that
that
monthly
they're
report, we
others?
would see it because she
Yeah.
had made note of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, I haven't seen that report in a while, but I don't know if we're still doing it, but I mean, that was another method of communication.
What's our drop dead date on this?
This is a renewal.
Had to be done this meeting?
Yes.
There's no reason not to. I mean,
Well, the only thing I just want to make sure that we're aware of is that staff has gone out and looked at all of these ponds from all perspectives, that to make sure that this firm is doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes. To my knowledge, staff is inspecting them actively, but we'll follow up.
do
on
you
this
still
one.
get the monthly report from Elle? Is that still ongoing?
She keeps that information on her report.
But it's available to you.
It's available, yes.
She
Okay.
creates it, yeah.
Okay.
She had,
Save the tree,
Hey,
not
Ed.
doing us.
Hey, Ed, one quick thing. You know, in this contract, if there's a certain amount of, visits, I think Elle does her report, but I think something should be signed off monthly that goes back to the vendor to acknowledge, we visited on X date. Elle looks at it, she documents any issues, sends that back. But I think there needs to be a formal process to where we are signing off on activity each month due to the sensitivity of the oversight.
Doug, that may be happening without our knowledge because I know in Pelican,
it is part of the contract.
we get a
that they
report
do
from the
report.
contractor saying what day he did it and what he did. So I
Yeah,
think it's
But
there.
I want that acknowledged. I want staff to receive the report, acknowledge
Okay.
it, make any edits or updates, and then send it back. That way, we have a little bit more checks and balances to that, and accountability and oversight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Public Works Director to see some of this. I know he's been busier than a one-arm paper hanger since the storm, but that's something I'd like him to go out and spot check some of these ponds just to see that these vendors are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, I'd go so far as to say that the Public Works head of Public Works would be the one signing off on that monthly checklist or review.
No problem
We
with that.
really
You guys
I
have-
just want to be clear. But the issue that you showed me, besides of some of the littorals that could be related to the hurricane, it's not a vendor issue. It's
Not pond maintenance.
it's not pond maintenance. I don't want people to think that it's not. It's maybe staff, or maybe they didn't relate that to staff, but it's not something that they did that caused that. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen, and that's what I was researching, these forms that the attachments that they got, which is just, there's a plethora of them, looking for something to say, hey, you guys got a problem with the scarp.
A comment on the scarp.
Yeah, or whatever position they're taking.
I believe we do get these reports from the vendor. It says it in the contract, they're required to do it. So maybe we'll have, with the renewal, we'll have a refresher from both the staff perspective and the contractor perspective, and we'll get a plan in place.
You probably only need it quarterly or biannually.
Other than that, I
They
looked at
wouldn't
the whole
change month to
contract. I
month.
didn't see anything that I had any
Nor
change
did
or
I.
recommendation for. So I guess what we
and
need
Chelsea,
to-
this is an area too that I would imagine our contracts manager would be analyzing these contracts, looking at current state, and making recommendations on additional language or oversight that needs to be put in as we, continue to improve our contracts and our ability to hold vendors and ourselves accountable.
Has he seen this and gone through it? Any comments?
This is a renewal from
Okay,
the
it's just-
existing terms that were already in place. So
Okay.
when and if it is time to go out to bid, and we can review and amend and see what worked for us the last, couple of years and how we can tweak that moving forward.
All right, so I'll make the motion to go ahead and go with signing the renewal with the same vendor.
I'll second.
Cross Creek. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. I lost my agenda. Where am I at?
Here, you can have this. I got it.
It's buried in the paperwork. Item D, FY 2023 CIP 24 irrigation system meter project. This is over here at the wastewater plant site, our big irrigation meter.
Yes, sir.
Somebody going to make a presentation? You presenting this one here?
Yep, I'll present this. So the meter itself, it's within, we have Fred Middle is the engineer of record, put together the plan set. We're ready to move on acquiring and purchasing materials, considering the long lead times. The meter is within the district manager's authority to approve, so that purchase order is going through. You do see a letter of recommendation from the engineer of record to purchase these materials. You'll notice we got 3 quotes. The vendor to go with is Ferguson Waterworks. And so this was an already approved CIP project. Funding's available. It's a matter of us purchasing the material, which has long lead times, and then awarding the work and getting it in place, hopefully this fiscal year.
Well, this is critical because the meter that we currently have is not only getting old, it was improperly located. You don't put 24-inch meters on a 90-degree bend. You just don't do that. Did we have, or did Tetra Tech prepare a drawing for where the new meter is going to be located on that long run?
Yes.
So we have a drawing
We
on
have a
which we're
plan
going to
set.
do this. We have
Yes.
plans.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
great,
sir.
great. Any discussion on that?
Nope.
It's big bucks, but that's what you get when you get into these size meters. Do I have a motion to approve the purchase of this 24-inch
I
irrigation?
will make that
reuse meter?
motion.
And I'll
Thank you.
second the motion.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. 5-0. And the last one, Hurricane Ian street light damage repair.
So post Ian, we had our electrical contractor come out and inspect. So immediately after the hurricane, we had 4 or so poles that were down. We secured those, addressed any safety issues, but we had a handful of other light poles that are either damaged or need repair in some form or fashion, to the tune of $17,500. I think that's the total.
Sorry.
Yeah, 17,250.
Yep, 17,250. So the question to the board is, do you wish us to pursue and have all of these lights repaired, or consider having discussions next meeting and a presentation from FPL and hopefully looking to replace the system as a whole, not spend these money. Most of these poles are up in oak trees, or the lighting that they do provide is not sufficient. But ultimately, we look to you for direction.
Okay, is there a reason that the Pelican pole damage was not included? Because they are similar. There are roads, there are lights.
I think the cost on that wasn't as substantial as this.
Are you kidding me with all the poles we have down? Okay,
And then I have a question because
I would like to include it. I would
Yeah.
like to have that
Okay.
survey in here also.
Well,
Because we had a number of poles that were sheer light poles.
I understand where Chelsea's coming from, but on the other hand, I'm sitting here riding 9 of these lights in my community, and
I don't say slow this down. I just want to
yeah,
include
I
Pelican
just
in there.
don't see FPL doing as much that fast. They got so much going on.
I
They're
totally
chasing
agree.
their tail. It could be years before, or a year before we get to it.
It may well be, but I want to get Pelican on the list.
Okay, well, what we can do is we can work and get these repaired and submit the claim through our insurance.
Okay, so I have another question. So when I saw this, I thought this included everything except what, Pelican. And you mentioned you didn't because the cost, it wasn't that much. But I can tell you there's at least on Griffin, there's more than just one.
Okay.
So staff prepared this?
We
Well, it
went out,
says 2 on Griffin.
we went out with the electrician, and the electrician inspected this.
Okay, because I know there's one by the lift station, so I don't know if that, right by the school, so by the lift station, the last lift station between Magnolia and like, are we responsible for those, or is it Gateways, the school is, for those lights?
We'd have to look at the bill and see if that is covered on ours.
Because if.
And
if
I'd
it-
have to look at the pole type too.
Okay, if they are ours, then there's more than
Okay.
just two.
Yeah, and I'm a little concerned also with, on the insurance side, what do we have for a deductible?
We have it.
Because
The insurance.
I'm concerned that we apply for this and 17,000, we come back and we get
$50,000
a
deductible.
$1.298 back from the insurance company, and then they're mad and they raise our rates the next time. Would we be better off?
Well, we did have the insurance, him out today to look. Just to clarify, the street light poles in Pelican Preserve are FPL poles. So we wouldn't be,
So that there's anyway.
we wouldn't be touching or repairing FPL poles.
So
These
they're
are district
already
owned.
under the, well, we have both types out. We have both types. Yeah, we have some of FPL, but we also have some that are.
Okay.
And we had 2 independent analyses, one by Castle, and they submitted a list, and then we double checked it, and we had one by Safety and Security where the poles themselves were identified by ID.
Well, what West Coast, I know Castle is working with West Coast Lighting to get a price proposal and oversee the repairs on those.
And I understand that that is happening, but I want to have it all, it's all Gateway money. At least that's the part we're focused on. And I'd like to have it as one package.
Okay.
And then the other one is that I think I know which pole this is. It's the one, the entrance to Hampton Greens, pole destroyed, no longer buried. Yeah, it's laying on its side. It snapped off at the ground. And we're in the process of getting ready to, hopefully, with FEMA getting everything out of the way, we're going to have Mainscape coming in to do the final touches to try to return everything back to somewhat normal. And that pole's just laying there. We need to get that pole out of there. But
We have a number like that also.
But I don't think it's $3,000, or I would hope that it's $3,000 just to take that pole that's busted to take it out. I was kind of.
It looks like it's a generic price.
I was hoping that FEMA guy would pick it up, but he missed it. But that is something we need to go ahead and do.
Well,
So I agree with what Bob's saying, is let's just put it all together, see what it is, but find out what the impact is on our insurance. Because if we're not going to get very much out of it, why do we want to take and have a issue for them just to raise our rates next year?
Agreed. Well, and that's, again,
No,
if the board.
Chelsea, I have a.
Go ahead, Doug.
Sorry, I just have a quick question. So, this would put us in a situation where we could potentially accelerate the lighting project. To start the work or to accelerate our can you get with FPL prior to them coming in for that presentation? Can you hear me?
Not really.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, so this is an opportunity for us to accelerate, but of course it's dependent on FPL, agreeing to acceleration or whatever their timeline. Can you just get with FPL prior to them coming in and say tentatively, if we were to, approve our plan to proceed, what would be your timeline? How much are you delayed through the hurricane efforts and other things? Because that could, if they say it's going to be, 2 years before we can, work on this significant change out, then.
That's a good point, Doug. That's Chelsea's agreeing that we do
yeah.
that, so we have a knowledge of what their involvement will be.
I can email Zach.
Okay.
So
any other questions other than the instructions to get
these 3 categories are consistent with what we're seeing. We have poles down, we have fixtures that are destroyed, and lenses. And some of our poles are leaning. So it's the same in both communities. Just get a price on it.
Anything else? You need any?
So.
Do you want direction?
Yes, please.
You feel you have direction?
I have direction to contact FPL and find out expediting the lighting project, but also making sure we have the comprehensive list for all of the lights. And then
Insurance.
comparing that to insurance and see if it's worthwhile, but regardless, we need to get these lights repaired. That's what I'm hearing.
That's what I
I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay,
Thank
we
you.
have clear direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we finish? Are we ready for the public hearing?
Well, if you'd like,
Hour and 5 minutes, or we can skip to 13.
that would be my recommendation.
Okay, let's skip to district manager items.
So we received notice today from SRF. The engineers and staff are working on a slew of projects, but we did receive notice for the Lower Hawthorne well that it will be added to the November 30th request for inclusion for the construction funds. So that was good news that we received today. We did get notice, Laura, do you want to explain on the Weiser contract? Or you want me to tackle on? Okay. It has come to our knowledge that Pelican Preserve, the contract with Weiser for security at the guardhouse and the rover that they have, that contract expired September 30th of 2022. We have been working diligently with Tony on coming up with alternatives on how we can renew this. Looking back at the records and the RFP and the contract itself, we think it was the intent to award it as a 3-year contract, but the paperwork doesn't necessarily show that. Tony, do you want to opine on the research that you've done and how we can do next steps to make this work?
Yeah, the approach can be, if it's acceptable to, let me back up a bit. This is not one of those contracts that's required to be competitively solicited. If the board so chooses, they can. In other words, if you look at the statutes in chapter 190, you look at what's required to be competitively bid. You look at the district's rules or procedures, what's required to be competitively solicited. This type of contract is not one that's required to be. So the
Did
board,
we hire them?
yes,
This board?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, about a
And,
year ago.
and so what the board can do, we have an existing contract, and the board can amend the contract, extend it for a period of time. I think that you were thinking a 3-year contract, Chelsea, with coinciding with the fiscal year though versus a calendar year.
At least at a minimum of 2 additional years, which would make the term a 3-year contract, which we think was the original
When we're done.
intent.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I think it would be appropriate to authorize Chelsea to communicate and negotiate with Weiser for the amendment to the contract to provide for that additional time frame, and also negotiate whatever rates they propose for that period of time, and hopefully keep them the same, and then come back to the board at the 17th. Is that the approach,
Yes.
Chelsea?
The rover, did we negotiate the rover a part of the contract?
Yes.
Or, okay, we don't supply the rover.
Nope.
Okay.
Roger does it all. Securitas did it before that, and somebody else before that.
So fuel.
And I think it was the
insurance and all that
intent when it
stuff.
went to PPAC that it was going to be 3 years. We were always thinking that. Maybe we didn't have the language right. I don't know how either, but this was a surprise to me. We thought it was 3, yeah.
So again, the intent, looking at the minutes and the discussions and some emails between the previous district manager and PPAC members, again, the intent was 3 years. That was never ratified in the paperwork.
Okay.
So, but there is the opportunity to do that here now with your authority for us to go negotiate. Weiser has honored their existing price through the end of the calendar year. That gives us time to resolve this.
I'll make a motion to that effect, give them the authority to do that.
And but what Tony, what you're proposing to do, a way to resolve it would be to just extend or amend the contract.
Correct.
To the original 3-year.
Right.
Correct. Well, actually a little bit shorter if it ends at fiscal year 2024.
Correct.
It'll be the 9/30/2024.
Which will be 3 years.
So it's 3
Yes.
months difference.
22, 23, 24.
Yeah.
Okay, so I made a motion.
You will second that.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion, Doug, Bill?
No.
Hearing-
No.
All hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank
So-
you.
Hell, we
And
will.
Phil, Mr. Measy, that is consistent with your understanding with PPAC also. Okay, thank you.
So this will be just brought to PPAC's attention at their meeting next week. Hopefully we'll be able to negotiate some terms in between now and then, so PPAC can weigh in on the percentage amount increase that I anticipate Weiser to request. And we'll bring it back for your ratification at the 17th meeting.
Okay. I'll get it. Other items.
I do not have anything. Do you have
What
anything?
question? Where do we stand on SRF availability funds for pond bank work. Have we heard anything?
I'm sorry.
Pond bank?
The engineer is reaching out to SRF to discuss timelines and application for funding, understanding understanding that we have to get the facilities plan done first, and that has to get approved, and design and things like that. But the engineer is reaching out to SRF to put together a timeline, understanding we don't want to miss another off season. And so he'll have an update, hopefully in his next monthly report.
Anybody think anything for Chelsea? Look it up. Moving on. Tony, district attorney items.
Working with Chelsea on a number of items, number of matters, and I will continue to, and I'm sure Charles, man, is tied up with a number of other items. Continue to work with Charles, or nudge Charles, or poke, as Chelsea and Laura do to me, to finalize a quick claim deed that we need with regards, the release of covenants on the commons area. And they said they would do that, and we would accept it, and then I provide my opinion that there's no need to worry about that restrictive covenant after that point in time, so we can move forward with the utilization of that for other purposes under the PUD, because it's allowable under the Gateway PUD. Working on a number, like I said, number of contract matters, the bond financing matters, and we sent the letter off. The letter was signed and sent off to Randy Searcy on the golf carts, but I'm sure we won't hear about that for quite a while with everything else that's going on.
The issues of outstanding WCI, old WCI owned things like the ponds and some of those.
Most of them
where's
have been
that
taken care of.
hanging?
Yeah, the Westlinks Lake partial tract was taken care of, all the FPL plus a little side piece, I'll call it.
Yeah, there's little pieces.
Area 9, there's a couple little straggler pieces. They're at the top of my desk to finalize those. It shouldn't take that long to do that. It's just, again, a matter of looking at the title work, the legal description, the sketches. And I think I mentioned the last board meeting or the one before, Lennar has paid all the past due taxes on all these properties. And also Vicky Smart, who's great. She's in the tax collector's office. She's been there a number of years, and she went back and also rectified and corrected some issues with regards to tax certificates on other properties where the district has an interest. So.
Contract.
Pardon?
Contract.
Oh, yeah, forget it. One of the fun opportunities Chelsea's had for the last 2 weeks or so is, I'll wait for Mr. We don't have a quorum.
No, we have to wait.
We just
till he
lost a quorum.
returns.
Thank you for that reference.
2-minute pause. Hopefully, 3 minutes.
Some pressure, huh?
Literally.
We'll put a tree in the corner for him.
Well, I think you'll be.
Well, let me come back.
Remind me to ask you when we come back in about the LIPA, that fiasco with LIPA on ownership. What a mess. I mean, what a mess.
There's a reason for that. It's not really a mess, but I'll
There's a
discuss
reason?
that. I'll address it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We're good.
We're back on. We have a quorum.
Yeah, and going through the record, our district council services agreement expired a few months back. And so what we talked about is.
It's been free for the
been
last
free,
couple
that's
of-
good.
It's been free.
Sorry about that, Tony.
Okay.
Snooze, you
That was a
lose.
wonderful, I'll leave the snacks I brought. I won't take them back with me. No, just kidding. And so what Chelsea and I discussed was the board's consideration of basically approving an amendment to extend until, again, 9/30 of 2024 under the same terms and conditions, and bring that back to the board at the next board meeting.
You want a motion?
Discussion?
That's what the request is, for the board to do that.
Reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Two other items. Rico and Phil Measy, the audience has whispered in my ear. They're asking about the status of certain matters involving conveyances in Pelican Reserve. Today by email, I've not looked at it yet. And Chelsea received by hard copy the original of the corrected deed for the OS4 tract for Pelican Reserve, that access road. Palazzo is addressed and taken care of. I've gone to our storage unit and pulled a number of files dealing with conveyances in the past from the original requisitions, the original plans, the record drawings, to work with Tetra Tech did an initial analysis of landscape easements. And so I'm seeing if I can help supplement that. This is for Pelican Reserve to clarify some of the issues involving where does the district have landscape easements, landscape facilities, and irrigation facilities. What areas? And so I'm hoping to report back. The initial goal is to report at the PPAC meeting next week. I have a conference room with these boxes, with these files, and
Doesn't our GIS system show that for Pelican?
it may not. A lot of the
They don't
records are-
have all the information.
Well, a lot
in the
of
legal.
the requisitions began in '03. So, and I don't know what the district has in the way of plans starting. Anyway, so I've been going through those and look through those to
And
try to come up with a more comprehensive list so that we can identify what areas license agreements or easements may be necessary if the district is continued to maintain what it historically maintained.
And
That's
the
to get the
intent
bright
is that
line.
So
when he is finished with this, then the GIS will be updated to reflect,
So we're gonna see what we got
yes.
to figure out what we need to do.
Yeah, because I don't know what GIS has or Austin has with regards to the prior requisitions from
Well, there's
03.
two GIS systems.
Passarella.
There's
and
one
Austin.
here and the Pelican one.
Right.
And the Pelican GIS is the only one I'm talking about right now.
Yeah, that's what I was
This,
referring
and
to.
this task that Tony is discussing was a request of the Pelican Preserve Advisory Committee. So they have tasked Tony to look at this on a not to exceed price.
Correct.
So he's,
Yeah. We needed it anyway because of a lot of other things. But
Yeah, some
it
questions
has been
arose.
legitimized by PPAC.
But just by way of example, when Tetra Tech did theirs, not all the use rights the district has may be contained in a platted, dedicated easement on a plat. For example, in Cypress Grove, there was this long legal description with a sketch showing how the landscape maintenance easement there extends beyond the boundaries of the right of way of Cypress Grove. And so I'm looking to see what other areas there may be additional easements and or bills of sale and or other instruments to get that bright line between.
And the end point is that we will know with a certain degree of certainty that if we are maintaining a plot of land, we have the authority to do it. That we're not spending district
Good idea.
funds. Well, yeah, it sounds funny, but it's true because we were just doing it before. We didn't really know. When WCI was running the community, it didn't matter. They paid it.
I've
You
ran
got
into it over at the RHOA, same thing. It's crazy.
And you were asking about LEPA.
Yeah.
On the LEPA, the Lee County Property Appraiser's Office, they list the record
And the
title
clerk's office.
from the clerk's office. They reference the fee simple title owner of land. They're,
what are you referencing?
we're talking about, I think in Stony Brook. the Stony-
Okay,
Stony
just
Brook.
clarify for
Various
the,
streets
Because
in
it's
Stony
critical.
Brook.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So everybody
And-
understands. The issue is that LEPA and the clerk's office show all of the roads and the right of way that we have, what we believe have, which we
do have.
know have, shows that it still belongs to Lennar.
Well, and again, there's a difference between fee simple ownership and a roadway tract being dedicated to an entity. And in this case, those roadway tracts have been dedicated to and accepted by the district. The underlying fee simple ownership may be reflected as being still owned by Lennar US Home at the LEAP of the Property Appraiser's Office, but the district owns and controls those roads. And so I've had conversations with Charles. Charles thought that the property appraiser in the past had agreed to reflect that ownership on the LEPA records. But and Charles said, if the district wants to be extra comfortable with it, Lennar US Homes would convey by quitclaim deed those roadway tracts to the district. But the
Lennar
district,
and US Homes, the people I talked to, Greg Ruffyarden, he didn't know a damn thing about it.
right, but what I'm saying, because the idea was to transfer the ownership and it's dedicated and the district accepted the dedication.
But my point is,
So the district owns and controls those roads.
but they continue to file documents with Lee County or Lee Clerk's office,
As if they did.
implying that they own it.
My-
Because they're indicating they changed one of them from Lennar, or it wasn't Lennar, it's the one, what was the one before? Previous company.
US.
Oh, no.
US Homes Inc. to US Homes LLC. Why would they submit that document if they didn't own it?
Okay, I don't think there, I have not seen what the document you're talking about, but
Yeah, it's
typically.
on LEAP if you go through the series.
Typically, it will be if there's a change in name of the entity as to all properties, not just as to any particular property. So in other words, when WCI went through its bankruptcy, if you look at what happened there, there was all those different entities that WCI had that wasn't necessarily conveyances of any other instruments. At times there were.
I'm just trying to make sure because if there's a benefit if we didn't own it,
We do own
that
it.
would open a door.
No.
But if we don't have it, then we'll have to take other.
I think
other
we're getting into the
opportunities.
weeds, and I think for clarification's sake, if the board directed Tony to
Reach out with NAR.
address these outstanding issues and
Yeah.
get it on LIPO or whatever needs to be done. I know it's ours, we know it's ours,
Yes, it is.
that we can get this cleaned up.
Yes.
Good.
Is that the direction you want? I
If,
think that's,
well, that's.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't need
if
any
the-
further direction other than that.
Well, I'm just, when you go in there and somebody's buying property or doing something and sees that, I'd like to have that pocketbook available if there's an
Well,
accident, because somebody's going to sue Lennar as sure as the day is long,
Well,
if there's an accident.
Again, it gets back to, for example, lakes quite often are dedicated to a governmental body,
Mhm.
but the fee simple may arguably still be in the original dedicator.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that the lakes are not owned by that entity to whom the dedication was made. So, but I worked with Charles. I think they'd be happy to.
Get it resolved.
Again, Nate thought it was
Yeah.
all taken care of.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else for Tony?
Tony, we covered most of this. The landscape easement projects, the cart path around conservation area number 6, that's included in what
Yes.
you're studying doing. The irrigation system ownership and understanding who owns what are those various components,
To the extent I
That's
can
a bowl of
discern that,
spaghetti.
yes.
because that's a bowl of spaghetti. We want to have a common understanding. Okay, that's all. That's all part of your November package.
Yes, if I can read all these plans correctly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bill, you or Doug have anything for Tony?
Not for Tony, no.
I do not.
I'd like to go back one thing to district manager. Chelsea, any update on our connector, I shouldn't say connector, our emergency and access road? That I see construction going on up there. Everything
Yes.
going good?
Yes, everything's in line. We had to work through some issues, but we anticipate construction by the end of the calendar year. Trying to get my mind right. Vendors are out there, contractors are out there, so we're full speed ahead. I will tell you, FPL, again, like Ronnie mentioned earlier, have gotten no response from FPL, still trying to work through some issues with them, but we're full speed ahead.
Is the announcement or are the announcements being made yesterday and the next couple of days relative to the reopening of the dump? Is anybody going to try to use that road as a way to haul
No.
that waste in?
No, we see no.
Totally, it's 82.
82 in and out. We're sharing as fast as they're sharing the information of the publicized meetings. There's one tonight in Pelican Preserve from 4 to 6, and then I believe Gateway Greens is hosting one next week.
But this is purely on the opening of
Yes.
The
the
landfill.
dump. Nothing else about FEMA picking up stuff
Correct.
or
This
any
is
of that.
just the landfill.
Okay.
Just the landfill and waste management.
Okay. Future board business, agenda management.
Are you planning to attend the one at Gateway Greens?
I'm sorry?
Are you planning to attend the one at Gateway Greens?
Not if they're going to be talking about that waste field. There is so much debris. I don't know where they're going to put it all. I swear, I don't know where they're going to put it all. Like I said, we went to Orlando last week, and you go north of 75 on 17, and for 20 miles, it looks like a war zone. I don't know where they're putting all this stuff.
Yep, they're
Anyway.
working, they're trying to figure it out. Just a correction to this, that we had a lengthy discussion with Tony. The 2 items for number 2 and 3 for the 17th, that'll get pushed to the December 1st meeting. But you will see at your next meeting, the preliminary design of the admin building, as well as a slew of other items that staff have been diligently working on. Everything we discussed today about the ratification of items. Is there anything that the board wishes staff to be working on? We have some lingering items below where you can see future plan dates for like the facilities plan draft. That'll require a public hearing for adoption. FPL will be coming finally got confirmation they'll be back at they'll be here at the 17th meeting. Have a meeting with them next week to kind of go over their presentation.
How are we gonna do that? We're gonna get them in and out right at the beginning?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That would be preferable. So if there's any items that the board wishes for staff to be kind of putting a tickler on, or items that you see that we need to start addressing, please let us know. This is the time to bring it up.
I think the big one that everybody's asking around the community is, has anybody seen what even begins to look like a schedule or a plan for the cleaning of these streets? I've talked to them till I'm blue in the face, and it's sort of like the key, asking for the combination of the lock to Fort Knox. They don't tell you anything. I said, well, I'm just trying to be able to facilitate and get guards out to move traffic, because that truck, when it gets on the road, you don't get any cars by it. And if you're on a road that needs access for an emergency, you got a problem.
You talking about a street sweeper or
No,
a
the
wall
big
to pick
FEMA
up?
truck, that big FEMA truck, it's
Okay,
huge.
all right.
Have you guys heard anything on schedules or seen anything on schedules
No,
of where they're going?
to my knowledge, they're still on first sweep throughout Gateway. And I know the majority of the horticulture has been picked up, but as we all see, more people have gotten the time the last month to trim and set additional stuff out. But I'll follow up with the county liaison who oversees our area and just kind of put a tickler in her ear. And if I get a response back, which I anticipate, I'll pass that along to you all.
The thing that's bothering our people is why they go down a street, they'll take a pile, skip a pile, take a pile, skip a pile, and then they don't appear to be coming back to pick up the ones they skipped. And everybody's sitting there with what did I do
differentiates-
wrong?
Yeah.
And
City of Fort
I
Myers
don't get it. I don't get it.
is doing an outstanding job in Pelican. They are really
Well,
doing
these
a
guys are
great
doing a
job.
good job. It's just that they make no rhyme or reason of how they're picking this stuff up.
I can tell you that how piles are set out is very important, making sure that you separate your debris, your C&D from your landscaping, from your white goods. We don't really have that
Yeah,
much
we've told
C&D.
everybody that, and they've indicated to us that the gal that is with them, that they'll take the stuff that's in the black bags and the stuff that's in the brown paper bags at this point in time, because it's being burned and not recycled. I'm waiting for them to come back, change their mind, in which case then we've got a problem.
Who should you talk to?
All of ours is being taken. They're taking the black bags and the brown bags.
Well, we've heard different stories from different folks, but I'll follow up and
Okay.
see what I can get out of the county. But
Appreciate that. That's trying.
Hey, Chelsea, one quick question. There's a couple trees. Can you guys hear me?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a couple trees that are leaning that will probably need to be removed. That's on district property. Do we have an effort to get those trees cut so we can have them removed according to the schedule?
We've had Ronnie out to inspect all of our district assets, and he didn't recommend us cutting down any trees. But I mean, if you want to email me the locations of those, we'll have him do a second
There's one
inspection.
by FPL, like Next Level Church and Stony Brook. There's one down there, big one.
Okay.
Oh, there's one that's laying in the
Yeah.
right of way on the northbound side, going up towards Stony Brook. It's laying in that pond retention area where all the
Yeah.
excess water goes.
Okay.
That's a big tree. It's an oak.
Okay.
And then, well, somebody went out and marked the trees with the pink flags. Are those for trimming?
Yes.
Okay.
I did that in Gateway.
Well-
Don't ever do that again.
Laura
They
just
Use a
go
different
missing like
color.
there's no
Everybody
tomorrow.
thought I was cutting down all those oak trees.
Laura just reminded me that the trees that are leaning, Ronnie recommended that we trim them. So we'll make sure to follow up on those or get
Okay.
eyes on them again. Thank you.
Well, since we're talking about treeing and all this, I know we tried this avenue with the roundabout by the school and how it looks and the area surrounding. And I know they asked for us to take over the maintenance on that, and we said no. But I started looking, we have multiple areas that we are taking care of it right now that don't belong to us. And they're small areas. And I just think that is a huge eyesore. And it's getting worse and worse and worse.
That roundabout.
It's horrible.
Does the board wish us to take it over? Because we can begin.
I mean,
this.
the only maintenance there is spraying. There's 3 Sylvesters, 5 or 6 sable palms, but those rocks, I mean, it is just, oh, it's just bad.
They're, they're just putting us in a position that they want us to do it, or otherwise they're just going to leave it because they're not going to spend any money on it. That's all.
And unfortunately, we don't have the teeth in this.
Yeah.
The county is the one that would have to enforce, you know,
Maybe we go through the county.
maintenance. So, I mean, we've had conversations with them and they're more than happy. Their level of expectation is far
Zero.
lower than ours. But if the board wishes for us to take it over, that's, I mean, we can do that.
What's your desire?
I don't want to
Do you
take it
want to take
over.
it over?
I don't want to take it over.
Well, I don't
and
want
pay
to
for
take it over neither, but we have pushed them over and over to spray it. So, and they're not. So
Where do we go from there?
my assumption was, meaning the district, my assumption was that Chelsea or staff have reached out to Lee County and tried to work out with them. But because that's what we ended at my last conversation about
What
this
other
roundabout.
options do we have, Tony? Do you have any other?
Yeah, that's it, you know, and as far as if we voluntarily do this, I think it's important to let them know in advance that we're not assuming that obligation. We're just doing it voluntarily because otherwise they can come back with it. And
You
you're
got it.
assuming
It's yours.
Yeah.
you don't have, you know, you're assuming that duty now.
Where do we go? Do we go before the county commissioners?
No, it would be the Lee County Board,
It's the school board.
school board. It's their responsibility.
Well, and there's going to be a larger issue at play too, because with the two roundabouts, I think we were trying to look at setting a kind of a style, and that crushed shell or whatever is not within that style. So, you know, if we change the look and feel of those roundabouts, we're going to have one out of, you know, basically out of our control that's going to look different than the other one.
Yeah.
And in order to upgrade them, I doubt very seriously the county or the school board is going to do anything to upgrade those. So we might have to make a tough decision on what do we want, absorb the cost in order to maintain a certain level of, you know, style and look and feel for those roundabouts. So.
And we did, when we met with them, we did ask them, you know, they turned it back on us, but we did ask them like, hey, you know, can you, I mean, if we took it over, could you compensate us for it? And they turned that back around and said, you already have your contractor out here. What's $100 more, you know, whatever the dollar value it would be for Mainscape. So we did pose the question. And again, their standard is much lower than ours. But I mean, if this is, I mean, we're maintaining other properties elsewhere that we're aware of.
So that's what my frustration. It's like we are deciding some areas we're gonna do it, some areas we won't. It's as a feeling thing, and like that benefit that's a huge area. I mean, it's really impact. I mean, I don't know if you guys drive there.
Not
I mean,
very
I
often.
hardly go that way because I've come, you know, towards this side. But when I go, 82 looks better than that roundabout.
Let's go the route of pursue the school board to see if something will happen. If that doesn't work, we can just go political.
Would you like Tony to draft a letter to the school board?
Well,
or the superintendent?
what might be best in this case is I always say lieutenants to lieutenants, generals to generals. And in this case, you know, Chelsea is manager to the superintendent. And if there's no real response back, request an opportunity to speak at a public meeting of the school board.
Ironically enough, he's agreed to come to our Winterfest event to.
Right now he has.
Yeah.
But that might be an approach also, is because I doubt if the school board wants to have a public discussion
No.
of this. They have all these other items on their plate, and local governments do not want to look like they're being abusive. So I think Chelsea to the
So
superintendent.
would you like for me to draft?
I would. I think that'd be a way to start and find out if we can rattle their cage to do something. Otherwise, they're just standing. They are talking to
And the roundabout is one thing, but there are DOT compliances with the weeds growing over the white lines. There are other things that those will be able to enforce. I mean, but the school is a year old.
They don't care.
So perhaps I'll draft it, and Flavia, since you're most keen to this issue, would you like to review the letter before I send it?
Send pictures with it too.
Pictures. I'm okay. You don't need my blessing. You can just pictures.
All right, I will draft that and get that. We'll try to get it out tomorrow and hopefully get an answer back by your next meeting, if not the first meeting in December.
Okay.
Any update from the county on the roundabout construction? They still late December, January?
You'll have, for your review at the 17th meeting, approval of the contract, and that they're planning on taking the contract in December to their Board of County Commission for approval. And I think, like most
January,
contractors right now, they're looking to issue NTP on procurement of materials, and then later the actual construction NTP. So, but you'll see that at the 17th meeting with a letter of recommendation from the district's engineer of record for the utility side. I will tell you the bid came in much higher than expected.
Well, they got a bid already?
Yeah, there were 2 bids that were received, and the engineer is reviewing those right now, and you'll see that in your packet for the 17th.
Anybody have anything else for either district manager or attorney?
Oh, no, okay.
Nothing. Supervisor comments and reports? Trying to stall it out. We got 35 minutes.
I have one.
Bill?
Since this is
Bill?
my last meeting,
No,
I want
no,
to, can you hear me?
One more.
Bill, you got one more. Sorry to,
Burst your bubble.
This is Laura. I sent you an email with an apology. I'm sorry. I lied.
no
I
swan
think
song.
this is it. Anyway, yes or no, I want to wish you all the best in the future. Those who can remember how things were 12 years ago can understand how much progress has been made. I'm sure there are plenty of things that will need your attention in the years to come. Thank you very much for your friendship and diligence to the residents of Gateway.
Thanks, Bill.
You'll be
Thanks,
here
Bill.
for the 17th
We hope to see your smiling face on the 17th.
in person.
Personal appearance.
Bob's going to chauffeur you over here. Okay, doke. Comments. Doug, anything? Or is he back on the road?
No, I'm still on the road. It's raining pretty heavily, so nothing for me right now.
Okay, doke. Bobby? Bob?
I have one thing, and I thought it was going to come up tonight, having to do with records requests. And this had to do with, I received an email with an agenda of a PPAC presentation. And I think it had to do with a verbatim transcript. But anyway, when I got it, I wanted hard copy because I like hard copy. So this leads into another thing. And when I sent the request to Georgia, which I've been doing for 2 years, I got a note back that said, and I'll read it, said Georgia is not the CDD's admin, not the board, or Georgia is the CDD's admin, not the board's admin. She helps us coordinate the items for the meetings. Requests for any type of records, meetings, agendas, et cetera, should be directed to customer care. This doesn't mean she won't ultimately fulfill your request, but requesting everything from customer email address is the correct process. I take exception to that, and I just want to see how my fellow board members meet. I don't think I abuse it.
Is this, well, what I do is before the meeting, I usually print a lot of the stuff, but this one was a big one. So I called her up and she just copies off the pages that I want.
But that's exactly my point. But did you call Georgia or did you call customer care?
I said Georgia an email.
Okay, that's what I've always historically done. But I got this email back saying I shouldn't, if I'm reading it right, I shouldn't be contacting Georgia. I should be contacting customer care.
Correct. Please contact customer care if you need items printed or if there's a public records request. Today is a perfect example. If you email Georgia directly, she's out today. We don't know that you have a need and it's a time sensitive need. So that's why customer care is viewed by Randy, Laura, and myself, and Georgia too. She has eyes into that. But requesting public records requests have to go to customer care. And if you need, I sent out an email to the board requesting a discussion at a future board meeting date about printing of the packets. The whole point, the reason why we went to Granicus was to try to stray away from paper copies, understanding.
Well, let's not go to that one yet. That's the next topic.
Okay.
Let's stay with this one.
Yep.
Because I believe that the staff, and particularly admin, works for the board.
I work for the board.
Okay, I understand your perspective. I respectfully disagree with that. And when I need administrative help with something like this, that is definitely board business, I don't expect to get shuffled off to another email address.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't,
To me, I think there's two things. Records request, like a document now, I need something that's not pertaining customer service. I do that.
I agree with that.
Records request. And then if you want your records request printed, then you pick it up. And if there's an next time, I think we have do we have a schedule fee for, if it goes,
Yes.
so it goes with that, fine. But if it's a board pack and we want to print it instead of have it electronically, I don't recall being that the reason why we switched to the new system. Could it be an advantage? But I don't think that was the reason why how it was proposed to us. Like, this is the new system and you're no longer going to get paper. So I think it's one thing is records request, and I think you understand, you agree
Yep,
that you
I'm
do it
okay
that
with
way.
that part.
The printing, I think if somebody wants it printed or less printed, I think they'll be able to do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's abused, but I might be wrong. So if it is,
But then
tell me.
But then emailing Georgia, I need clarification on that too, because even when you call, I believe it does say if you want to speak with the board liaison, it is Georgia. What number?
Okay. Okay. Well, that's just, we can work to address that. But Tony, please clarify for me, do staff work for the board? I mean, in essence, I mean, we all work for,
The staff works for the district. Correct.
Okay.
And the person that's directly responsible to the board is the manager. And the manager hires and retains all the other employees, and some of them are subject to the board's approval. So, and I guess.
Okay.
In some ways, it goes back to when we could call, like I wanted to call Kenny, and I was told not to answer it, not to talk to me. And I think we've got that behind us. I haven't had any additional problems, but it's the same sort of a thing. When I deal with employees of the district, whether it's the district manager or other employees, I would like the courtesy of them at least acknowledging if they think that what I'm asking for is wrong or improper or whatever. I'm not above being challenged, but a simple request to print a document for a meeting, I don't know why we're having all this conversation.
Yeah, I think this gets back to the last board meeting. If I recall, there was a discussion about clarifying protocols for the board and interaction with the staff and management, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And so I think that's something we can bring back to the board to have that, so there's no fuzziness, no concern.
Well, the only change that is,
that
that staff is requesting is if you need something that you email customer care and not Georgia directly. Because operationally, that's a concern, because again, if she's out sick,
Then you know why you didn't get your answer.
Well, but again, we want to be responsive to everybody, yourself included. So if you just email customer care, we can address it.
But going back, if she's out a day or two, I usually hear about that. Very few of these things are urgent. It's just a pro forma. I think I should have the right to request that.
Yeah, I think the question is whether the board wants to have, I'll call it a central focal point, being the customer care, with the assurance that it's being monitored by 3 or 4 or 5 employees. It's not just one person. That's what it sounds like.
And I'm okay with that.
I think there's a benefit to that.
Yeah,
I do too.
Responsive, and that's what it sounds like.
But maybe the delivery of that email, how you read it should have started with that.
Well, I just took it literally and read.
So at the next meeting then.
But I'm saying to you, I think it would be easier on you if they came to me and say, Bob, we got this, but however, going forward.
Well, I called. I didn't just bring it up here. I called and I talked to see if I could get clarification, but the staff was telling me, no, you shouldn't have the right to ask Georgia.
Who did you speak to?
I didn't say you couldn't. I said I requested the same as Chelsea, that it comes through customer care, especially like today, why I didn't say Georgia couldn't print it for you or wouldn't print it for you, just needed to come through there.
Okay, that's
where
what
the
I take
requests
exception
go.
to. I don't think it should come through customer care.
But like,
send it directly.
again, today's perfect example. We don't know how long Georgia's going to be out, and that stuff sits in her box.
And I said I'm okay with that.
So
I'm okay with that part. I'll take that risk.
So from now on then, prior to a meeting, if we have documents that we need,
Email customer care.
email customer care.
Say, I need items 1,
So you're
6,
saying you're
and
okay
7.
with that we don't go through Georgia?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I did not. Okay.
I didn't say I was okay. I will live with it. My thing is that I thought it was more a monetary deal, and we're sitting here talking about a budget and we're at a $50-60 million asset. And we're worried about a little bit of paper. No way. Don't bother me. And I definitely, if I need documents, I guess customer care and public requests for documents, I'm assuming are two different things.
That's what I would think.
And as long as I'm seeing those as two different things, that's fine. But if I'm in the deal that I've got a request as if when I was out there in the audience requesting for documents, that ain't flying.
Okay, so
That ain't
I
flying.
wanna say this. I was in the same position. Chris started when Chris, because I remember receiving this email from Laura when Chris was here, when I was sitting on the board and I needed his stuff. And very rarely, you guys know that I request documents. I think I try to look for on my own. And I was told that from going forward, I needed it to go to records request to, and I said, how can I do my job when I have to have, delay, or sometimes I don't want to explain to you what the delay, or it's at my leisure. If I want to read at 3 a.m, I want to be able to have it. And I was told the same thing. I, I had to accept it. I didn't like it, but I didn't want you to think that this was a Chelsea, but this was, I don't know if we're bringing it back up now, but Chris started with this. I don't know if it was just me or was it for
Well,
you guys too?
I don't
It
mind.
seems like it was just
In
me.
2 years is the first time I ever had one kicked back like this.
I don't mind going through and doing the customer care. I just want it done. I want the documents.
Well, as long as it's district assets related, as long as.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And now we know
Yeah,
it's going to be
agreed.
faster. So get that, Bob.
Okay.
You may even get
Before we
me
had
to
to wait
print
for
it.
George, and now there's 5 of them.
But if
Yep.
I make a mistake, I'm old and I
That's what I'm
do
listening
things
to.
by rote. And I send it to Georgia, it's still gonna get done.
And
But-
plus that helps if you do customer care. Georgia has been taking on some additional responsibilities and she may not have time to get to it. And then since there are 5 of us monitoring it, one of us may just grab it and run with it and print it for you. So by sending it to one person, it's going to get locked in a queue, or if you send it to customer care, you have a much greater chance of getting it locked in there.
Operationally.
Yeah,
But if-
I, I think we got to look at this thing from 2 areas, and I think we're spending a lot of time talking about it. I mean, if the board needs information, they should be able to get that information. If it's a capacity issue, which I understand the customer care email, that there should be some SLAs assigned to that. So if a request comes through customer care and it's from a board member, it should be turned around within X amount of time. If it's a capacity issue, then we need to look at our administrative support and say 20% of that capacity from an administrative perspective is dedicated to board requests. If that becomes an issue, then we have to look at headcount. But I mean, the board needs information. We should be able to get that information. How we obtain it, if it's customer care email, to ensure that information gets turned around, then I'm okay with that. But I want to make sure I understand where the nature of the intent of this request is coming from. Is it directly board related, or is it related to things that are being requested outside of what we would normally consider board business or standard board requests?
Who's overseeing when it goes to customer care? You say it goes to 4 or 5 different people. What if nobody answers it?
No, that's not happening.
That's not happening.
Well, that's
No.
where there has to be a service level there. So I would say anything that comes through from the board needs to be turned around within 24 hours.
Internally,
I mean,
we've had, and this is kind of how all of this came to a head, was internally, we had 5 hands in the pot. And with 5 hands in the pot, things began to get confusing. Who was handling what? Randy has taken point for everything not utility related. Utilities is Vicky and Leslie are handling every utility related request that comes in. Randy is handling everything else. Now he may say, Georgia, can you get this for Mr. Geppert or Ms. Walsh? But we're trying to streamline this process. But if you guys are requesting specific items from Georgia, again, she may have other items or she may not be there. We want to make sure that we're getting you guys what you need in a timely fashion.
Well, when you get a customer care, do we get or will we get back received working on it?
Yes.
We do get it.
Yes.
Yeah, because I use it. I get one
I've
right.
never used it, so I haven't
Yeah,
gotten
never
it.
used it.
one automatically comes in. It gives you like, you should expect something with, I think it says 24 hours. You get an answer for 24 hours.
20,
Or
48
48
hours. Yeah,
hours.
48
it's
hours.
Excluding
fairly, usually I
weekends,
do
yeah.
get an answer within the day.
So did I,
There's an automatic reply from that email address, so you know it was
So my
delivered.
request is if you could comply, play along with us at least through the end of the calendar year, email customer care for all of your needs, please. Or myself. You can, I mean, I don't,
Or me.
but I get them through customer care.
if I send it
It's
to you
good.
or send it to her, what's the difference to sending it to Georgia? I don't understand the problem. It seems like we're creating a problem that there hadn't been one.
We're
Yeah.
staff workload is the issue. And so just email customer care,
Customer
please.
care, okay.
One issue, one email a month, and that's a staff workload?
Bob,
Come
you haven't
on.
been sending one email a day.
I mean, Bob, Bob, we're talking about an email address. What's the difference to you typing in customer care versus George's email? I mean, to me, that's nitpicking over semantics.
Well, it's a change, okay? We have done it I've been doing it for 2 years. Why do we have a change? And I was told that the change came about because we've always had that policy, but we didn't follow it. So then I cared. Then I said, who instituted this change? And I didn't get an answer to that. If it's always been our policy, something changed because I was always getting requests handled very promptly, and now I can't. And that's troubling.
You're not getting requests handled promptly?
Well, I was when I dealt it to George and I got it immediately. Now,
Immediately.
yeah, I did. And now it's a big deal. And we've wasted way too much time for this. It's a very simple thing. Can a board member request it for
Through
admin
customer care.
to get help?
Through customer care, please. That's my request.
That's your request, okay?
That's my
But it's
request.
not a mandated hard rule.
We're dealing with
Let's-
semantics
let's-
here.
Give him a cup. Do we have the ability to put him on the network so he has the ability to print, like he can take his phone or the laptop and then he can send the work to be printed at the office? Like I do that at my house.
No, we have to get him a domain login.
We'd
We
have
have to
to-
pay for licensing and everything, so. We'd have to create a domain login for him and I'd have to get licensing and stuff for that, so. It's
Don't
better
we
off
have
just
HE?
emailing customer care, requesting it to be printed, and we'll get it to him.
Okay, I was just trying to make it easier on you guys because he can print it from his phone and suddenly your printer is gonna turn on and the paper will be there and he just walks in and say, hey, I printed something, picks it up and go.
I'm set in my ways, but.
That's my problem.
I'm willing, give it a shot, see how it works. All I want to do is get the paper because I can use.
Well, I do too.
'cause I
But when
put
we're
notes
changing
on my
policies
paper.
and it didn't come here
Yeah.
for us to buy into,
Okay,
I have a problem with that.
let's go on. I
Well.
think we've all,
Okay, well, now let's take the second part of it,
the second part
is the printing of the books.
Yep. Does the board wish
I-
us to continue to print the books or
I
not?
thought we decided that a couple of meetings ago.
I would like to, I don't necessarily want the book. I put pages 1 to 5, 13 to 18, and go through, just like in this book, 65 or 75 of the pages were, that is the
That we
same
already have.
stuff that to have it printed again is no reason.
With every meeting, I have the book, and I save the books.
So you've got everything. And my deal is,
And when I
I
have some
don't-
comments on it, I put clips on here and I read them when we
so
go
I
to the
just
meetings.
scribble my notes on it.
But I thought that the
At this
accommodation,
point, my answer is, that I personally do not have a problem with board members having.
Yeah.
It's been done here for
years, and in the past, the question was that in order to save on George's time, we didn't have the tabs anymore. We just got a full box, and that's
Okay.
reasonable.
We need to know if you guys-
I do.
Somebody might.
Well, I'm not opposed to allocating $500 of administrative funds and just purchasing all the board members the printer. And you can
What'd you
print
say,
out
Doug?
whatever you want whenever. I'm not opposed to allocating $500.
I have a hard time.
So
concentrating. They're
we
talking.
can we can purchase a printer for each board member, and you can print out whatever you want whenever you want.
Yeah, my concern about that is then when it's in their personal residence, whether it's used for personal use or used for public purpose.
And then
that-
the ink can be very expensive.
And that gets a little awkward.
The ink is very.
Well,
expensive.
we issue, but Tony, we issue laptops and technology. What's the difference?
Yeah, those are pretty much restricted though, I believe.
Yeah, I turned the laptop in because it was too slow and old.
Well, the answer to the question from my point of view is if a board member wants the entire book, have the whole book. If he wants a portion of the book, he have a portion of the book.
I would agree with that.
I usually get the whole book. I'm gonna try, okay, and do like at only the items that I needed. I'll
Okay.
ask to be printed.
Okay.
But
Alright.
just as long as
Okay.
I get them in order, don't be like this.
Save the trees.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start
Save
with
a tree.
that. So that's I'm meeting halfway.
Okay, thank you.
I have no
So-
issue with board members requesting board books to be printed. If that's what they want to do, fine.
We just needed clarification, so thank you very much.
And my last comment has to do with Pelican Preserve only, but it's informational. They're transitioning, the Pelican Preserve Community Association is transitioning from their management companies of being Icon and Castle. They've consolidated that down to one, and I believe it's KW. So just informationally, they are in the process of transitioning. This will occur in the next 2 months between November, December. Yeah. So however that might impact you need to know it, just be aware of it. And that's all I've got.
I think I already asked Bill, you commented. Doug, do you have anything in supervisor comments?
No, I'm good.
I guess then what we do,
We
we take a
recess until 5 o'clock.
16-minute recess.
My bladder thanks you.
Okay,
We can run down.
Feed your face. What do you got? Already got a cookie. Already got a cookie. We're unmuted. Okay, doke. She's coming.
She went to Brazil. She went for president.
That's dangerous down
You
there.
should have won the customer care one.
I called her and asked her what her opinion on that.
Thank you, Bob.
She liked the whole side.
We haven't got a quorum. There we got a quorum.
I know, he's,
He said traffic is really bad
and it's raining
and it's raining.
We're at.
from Tampa home.
Oh. Laura, we ready? Are we on?
Yep.
Okay, let's call the meeting back to order. And this is a reconvening of our meeting of October 6th and pertaining to the bond validation.
That's
So-
correct. Mr. Chairman, if I may just briefly, yes, if you recall, on October 6th, are we recording it, Laura?
Yeah, we're still recording. I think we left Bill. I did, Bill dropped off. We are still recording. I didn't stop recording. I just muted us during the break.
Okay. This is the board, if you recall, on October 6th, 2022, the board opened the public hearing and began the public hearing for consideration of an adoption of resolution 2023-03. And at the conclusion of October 6th meeting, they continued to a date and time certain in place. This location on November 3rd, 2022 at 5 p.m. And so that's correct. So the board is reconvening the continued meeting of October 6, 2022. And we have, I think we have certain individuals online that are part of the finance team. Are they on?
Yes.
And if you want to introduce them, I think.
Yeah, who all's on?
Rhonda,
Pedro Hernandez, bond counsel with Squire Patton Boggs is on. Good evening, everyone.
Rhonda Mawson with MBS Capital Markets is on.
Is Stephen Bloom on?
yes.
Yes, I'm next, Tony. Stephen Bloom with Infomark.
Thanks, Steve.
Touche, Stephen. Thank you. And Fred Middle,
Fred too.
professional engineer from Tetra Tech is here. And Russ Wire is not here at the present time.
He may pop on later.
He met,
He
yeah.
had a conflict with Sorry, he had a conflict with the beginning of the meeting. He'll dial in as soon as he can.
And so I think it would be appropriate, Mr. Chairman, at this time, since the public hearing is still open, to ask if any, the manager, and on behalf of the board, to ask if there anybody signed up to speak in the room, remotely, or if any additional communications have been received by the district since October 6, 2023 on this topic.
Chelsea, have you had?
Yes, what he said. We do. Laura?
I have 4 people who signed up to speak in the room. 4 people who signed up to speak in the room. So far, no one on chat, and we don't have any additional emails or faxes that have not already been forwarded onto the board.
These are the
First-
ones we all received in the board packet.
Correct. We haven't had any besides the ones that you've already received.
What we have is what we got.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, what I would suggest is just being overly conservative, is that the board adopt a motion to open the public hearing today, the continued public hearing. I think that would be in order.
Motion to open the
Continued public hearing.
continued public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. First up, we have Rod Senior. And just a reminder, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Bill Guy for his years of service, and also welcome to Carol, to the community, to the CDD. I hope I'm afforded the same courtesy as the racing car guy in terms of time at the podium. 3 ways to finance capital expenditure. Short-term 5-year loan, 20 years financing by a state revolving fund or a bond, or thirdly, an annual contribution via capital reserve study. Other than a grant, those are it. Now, the bond avenue and the capital reserve study avenue are potentially in conflict. I'm recommending to this board that we wait for the new board to be seated, and we wait for new officers to be appointed, and we wait for the capital reserve study to be completed in the first quarter of 2023 to avoid any dilemma. Otherwise, why even commission the capital reserve study if you're going to charge down the bond avenue? I want to spend a minute talking about capital reserve study. It allows a community to build up capital reserves over time. I'm pleased that the district has awarded a $14,000 contract to reserve advisors to do this starting in January. We, as a homeowners association, mainly Ed and I, we commissioned Sedgwick to do a similar reserve a couple of years ago. 25-year spreadsheet. Holmont were the engineer. It resulted in $140,000 a year contribution from our community of 1,400 homes, which is $100 a year per home. Pelican Preserve is currently doing a capital reserve study for its 2,500 homes in 2 phases. So with respect to Gateway Services District, Tetra Tech's already done quite a lot of work on capital projects for the spreadsheet that supports the bond validation process. So that can be used, hopefully, with the capital reserve study in the new year. The only other cost is the $14,000 to the professional firm doing it. So capital reserve study are cost efficient because they're in-house. It disciplines the board because it subjects us to the annual budget process. It balances the capital expenditure with the annual contributions, and therefore you cannot go below zero, as we all know. In other words, you can't spend what you don't have, and that's old-fashioned family discipline. In contrast to bond, with the proposed bond schedule includes $45 million of capital expenditure, and that is being given rise from wish list items thrown in by board members and staff that haven't been debated or agreed upon. For example, the $6 million park that's in there that nobody wants. This bond validation process does provide borrowing capacity to issue a series of 20-year bonds. We should all be concerned that this would effectively give future boards a green light to borrow and spend like drunken sailors. Each bond carries a significant professional fee, like the guys on the telephone here, bond counsel, 1.5% of underwriters' fees.
Rod, can you wrap it up?
I can. 1.5% of underwriters' fees of 45 million is 675,000. So my recommendation is to allow the new board to be seated, allow the reserve advisors to do their capital reserve study in the first quarter, then dedicate a workshop where you've got all of the professionals, Russ Wise, Steve Bloom, reserve advisors in a workshop, and see if you can revisit this spreadsheet and spread out the projects over a 20-year span so you can build up a contribution from the community rather than rushing into this bond.
Thank you.
So I'm asking you to wait, if you would. Thank you.
Next up, we have Francis. I keep forgetting to turn my mic on, sorry. Francis Iannucci, hopefully. Oh, yay. Public hearing on assessments.
Thank you, and I thank the board for giving us time to speak. I know most of you, and I believe that you're knowledgeable and you're good at what you do, and you've done a good job for Gateway over the years. Having said that, I must vigorously protest this proposed funding project. Current economic conditions are making it almost impossible for most average residents to make ends meet. Inflation is at a 40-year high with no relief in sight. The price of food, fuel, utility costs, and basic necessities are causing extreme hardship on most people. Senior citizens are the most hard hit of all. Trying to live on a fixed income is difficult in the best of times. Add to that the cost of hurricane damage, and many of us will not be able to make our monthly financial obligations. Insurance premiums have skyrocketed, sometimes upwards of 100 to 200%. Water and sewer rates have increased. Irrigation rates have more than doubled in the past 2 years. HOA fees are rising and struggling to keep up with inflation. Taxes have increased. Now, the data used in the assessment revaluations is flawed and outdated, in my opinion. I've already sent a letter to the board, and so has Glenn Button, who has done extensive research and lives in Daniels Preserve. There's no calculation for the large percentage of homes that are unoccupied for more than 6 months a year, and of the remaining homes, a large percentage are only occupied by 2 people. So the single-family home study is flawed, in my opinion. Now, we all made careful calculations before we purchased in Gateway. Taxes, HOA fees, this one doesn't apply anymore, being away from the crowded areas and being out of the flood zone. A financial plan was made based on income looking forward for most of us who decided to purchase in Gateway. Now we're asked to fund a pool that nobody wants or uses, and I haven't seen the data, but I can't find anybody that wants it. We're asked to fund salary increases that are above inflation. There are dozens of vacant commercial buildings all over Gateway. Why are we building new ones? The damage to the lighting from Ian should be covered by FEMA and reduce the overall costs of upgrading our lighting. So the entire project, if taken as a whole, and it may have been updated, but I'm referring to the first 300 pages that I read, represents an additional 25 to 35% tax increase. Where do we get the money? Many of us are too old to move, and home prices and interest rates prevent that. And this was on a referendum on the ballot on Tuesday, it would fail 10-1, maybe by more than that, because I can't find a single person that would vote yes. So sometimes things that look good as time goes by don't look so good anymore. Present conditions support the canceling of this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Brian Moore. His question is, why do we need a new building and what is the cost?
Thank you. That was the question. Why do we need a new building and what's it cost? I know the cost was in your, I couldn't find the letter, $8 million or something like that. It's like the toilet out in San Francisco.
That's not.
Well, how much is it?
It's in the engineer's report, I believe it's $3,250,000.
Can we get rid of that and not have the bill? Why do we need a new building?
Have you
Why?
been around? I don't want to get into a debate, but have you looked at what we've got?
No, I haven't.
Well,
but
how do you make a
is
decision
this-
on what you don't know?
Is this a mature area now, Gateway?
What do you mean?
Is it built out?
No, no.
How much more is it to be built?
About 1,000, 1,200 homes yet.
Yet 1,200.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the new building is going to be on the land that you purchased over there by the swimming pool.
It's
Correct?
land that we've owned all along.
Yeah, I
We
understand,
didn't-
but you're
we
going to
didn't
put
pay
it
for it
there
yet.
on that land?
That's what we're looking at.
And then when would you start digging?
Well, plans are supposed to be shown to us, preliminary plans at the next meeting,
Which would be,
November 17th.
so you probably start digging 2023.
Yeah.
So the
Well,
cost for,
that's presuming that we can get plans approved and all the permitting and everything, probably be closer to 2024.
but like the other gentleman that just spoke, it seems like you kind of move ahead with nobody wanting to do this. And none of us understand why. Why are we doing this? We're rushing this through like there's no tomorrow. In fact, you went to the lawyer last meeting to make sure we were on schedule, that we could have this meeting by the 3rd so we wouldn't miss your schedule. Why the rush? Like the gentleman said, let's get a new board, let's do another analysis, and then come back to the people so we all agree to go with it. No one agrees to do this, but yet you people want to barge ahead and do it. Don't understand why.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Kathleen Flaherty.
Good evening. I'm Kathleen Flaherty. And I know that I'm going to be wasting my time talking because I already know you've already made your decision. However, what I want to say is this is not the time to do this, especially now after the hurricane. There are other things that are on people's minds, and that's what we need to consider. And I'm going to just take one thing off that you have on the wish list, and that's the signs at the end for Gateway.
Monuments.
monuments, signs, yes. Those are what makes Gateway Gateway. They're unique. They make Gateway Gateway. And you want to change them. You probably want to modernize them so that they're out of the world and okay. But I don't see the reason for that. I just took only one item through the wish list to go through. So, and as everyone else said, there has to be another way, but this isn't the time. I mean, inflation. I'm going to tell you that there's going to be a shortage of fuel, they said, come time in a few months. So think of all this that the people really have to spend on just to survive. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kay.
I don't have any other speakers
No-
in the room that
nobody
signed up.
online?
Nobody online is asked through chat. And again, we sent everything that we received via email or fax to the board already.
Yeah, and again, for the record, all comments that you receive by email, fax, or otherwise are on the website for the October 6th hearing and the continued hearing of today are all being made part of the record. I like that. Make
Correct.
sure it's all made part of the record.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, it's appropriate unless Stephen or Rhonda have anything different, or Pedro, I think it'd be appropriate for the board to close the public hearing. Stephen, Rhonda, Pedro, you fine with that?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Yes,
Stephen, you,
Tony.
Stephen, you nor Rhonda have any comments on or any changes that you would anticipate as a result of the work that we've done so far?
This is
was kinda-
Rhonda. I do not. I do not.
I kind of have one for Russ Wire, but I don't see Russ on. Is he on?
I don't see him, no.
Okay,
He's not
okay.
on yet.
Or perhaps pose the question and see if,
I'm sorry.
perhaps pose the question and maybe Rhonda can answer that.
Yeah, the issue is the methodology that we're using. I have concern relative to the billings, the method of billings. We're not billing anything because we aren't borrowing anything. That's one thing that everybody, I think, has lost sight of here. We haven't borrowed anything. This is a bond validation. Doesn't have anything to do with the borrowing. There's a lot of stuff on that list that I'm not in favor of, but we're not here voting on that. We're voting here on the bond validation, which is very critical. My issue is that we have a document in place that's gone back to 2003 or 4, which is the infamous interconnectivity rule. And I question whether or not we have applied that correctly on the calculations for two of the properties that are in the community relative to charges that they are not benefited by. Your thoughts?
If the interconnectivity rule is the rule that applies to the differential costs between the benefit related to Pelican Preserve versus the greater Gateway area,
Well,
the assessment methodology that I've seen that Russ has produced and is before you today does create two separate assessment areas and identifies from Fred's estimated construction costs where the benefits are in each of those costs related to those assessment areas.
yeah, I understand what you're saying on the Pelican Preserve, but I think if you read the rule closely, it does not specifically define it to be limited to Pelican Preserve. It says whenever in the district, a property is not benefited by direct connectivity. And we've got two properties that are within the community that are not directly connected, but yet they're being billed at the full rate. My question is that legal and proper?
I guess the question, only Russ can answer the question. Did he take?
That's why I was.
No, I guess the question is, when he conducted and prepared his assessment methodology and his assessment report, did he address those considerations in that budget philosophy rule? And I believe he testified earlier that he did. That's my recollection.
That's my recollection that he
Okay.
did.
I could be mistaken, but that's my recollection. Rhonda, Pedro, is that your recollection?
That's also my recollection.
If that's the case, that,
I could be
I'm
wrong
just,
there. Again,
I'm
that's
just
my
asking,
recollection.
I'm just asking the question because the fact that, obviously those things can be amended and changed. They don't change my mind on the need necessity of the bond validation. But I want to make sure that that was clarified, that in my mind, that it was a potential problem.
Yeah,
Uh,
Russ is the only person that can address that. But again, that's my recollection that he did. I stand to be corrected if he says he didn't, but I don't know if we can get him to come out of the other meetings he's in right now. He's in some landowner meetings and he has a conflict. Perhaps we can text him to see if he can pop in for 2 minutes.
Well, that can always,
Well, I just
that
want to
can
make
be
sure.
delayed. That doesn't, that's, to me, is not going to make it, the change one way or the other. It's
Well,
going,
but
it's going to make a correction is all it will make.
Well, again, you've asked the question and we're representing what we believe is our recollection, but Russ is the author of the
Okay.
report.
Okay, well, let's go on. If we can get Russ, we'll get to him when he comes back. Any other issues, Rhonda, or you or Steve or anybody else have relative to what's been done? Okay, no. Fred?
Yeah,
From-
yeah. This
from-
is, sorry, this is Stephen. No, I do not have anything else.
Okay,
This is
Fred?
Rhonda. I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you. Fred, you authored this capital improvement plan project that has had a lot of input from staff and this board. Any things you want to say on as far as the CIP?
No, I think it was, sorry. Thanks for asking. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Is it on? Oh, Fred Middle, Tetra Tech. Yes, I was the engineer that authored and signed this CIP. I think it's in good shape, basically. I mean, we went through a couple iterations of it and looked closely at, took in input from the people that have reviewed it, and I'm pleased that it's in good condition. I don't know what else to say. I have no other changes.
Tony, is there, and I want to make sure it's categorically understood by the people, that is there anything that we are doing tonight by the action of the approval of this resolution 2023-03 that is binding this district to $1 of debt assessment?
I guess I would phrase it differently. What the purpose of today's hearing is for the board to consider testimony and evidence and any objections to the assessments that have been proposed to be levied and imposed to finance any bonds that will be issued. And by virtue of this action, the board is not entering into any loan agreement, is not issuing any bonds. It's one of the many steps, part of a process to issue bonds. And the validation is a court process that's unique to community development districts when the borrowing is for a loan or borrowing or bonds, which is a borrowing, that will have a maturity of 5 years or more. But components of any, whenever there is long-term financing, it is not unusual. It's typical to issue bonds. That's how local governments, because they can't not mortgage their property. Bonds are issued, assessments are levied, in this case by CDDs, and the assessments are pledged to repay the bonds that are issued. By tonight's action, the board is not obligating itself to any bonds or any borrowing. They're continuing the process to get the court to authorize subsequently the issuance of bonds. And so at the bond validation hearing before the court, if the court agrees to enter an order validating the bonds as outlined in the validation complaint, then the board can then go ahead and begin the process of having public meetings of the board to consider issuing series of bonds to finance the capital improvement projects that are outlined. And at that point in time, when the bonds are issued, that is when the obligation to repay the bonds occurs. And the source of funds to repay the bonds is the special assessments that are levied and imposed and that will appear on the tax bill, on the annual tax bill. And the other important part is, as the board is conceiving this, and I can be corrected by Rhonda or Steve or anybody on the team as we go along, please feel free to correct me. The entire requested upper limit borrowing amount will not be borrowed in the first series. There are various phases and different projects, so that there might be a first bond series of X dollars, and the amount of assessments necessary to repay that bond is what will be levied and imposed. And then the board, when it does its next series of bonds, so it's not as if it's the whole amount all at one time. It's going to be staggered over a period of time. Rhonda, Pedro, Stephen, anyone want to step in and clarify if I haven't clarified it well enough? Rhonda?
Anybody?
I think Tony explained it very well.
Agreed.
Okay.
Do you want to go over?
Laura, would you put up on the screen 163? They always say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I want to make sure that everybody out there in the audience understands exactly what the cards we're dealing with here. Do you get 163 up there? This is, I'm sorry?
162?
Well, it's
I think
two pages,
I think I
62
want
and
one,
63.
I think I want 163. That's the summary page. What I did, the engineer in me, is to do an analysis of this, just to see what the ramifications are, because there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding going on. What I did is I took this report that the engineer prepared, whether you want to call it a wish list, whatever you want to call it, it is what it is. It is our best guess of things that could happen in this community for which we need to be prepared to handle financially. So I went and took the 22, 23, 24, all the way to 31, and assumed that we would go and borrow the money each year to finance those, and then added it up. And what it came out to be is that if we borrowed the $956 or $36,000, it equals to a principal interest payment of $89,500 a year for 20 years. Okay? That equates to $15 per resident in this room, single family home. A little bit less for the multifamily, 15 bucks. I added the next year, 23, which is got total bond of about 937,000. That took the total to $170 that we're now borrowing, that you're paying for to finance that. I did that all the way across, getting to what was in that report that said what was the maximum. So we go from 15 to 62 to 170 to 314 to 437 to 556 to 534 to 604 to 628 to 719, which was the maximum number that when we have borrowed all that money is what you would be paying as a single family home that's in this report. Okay? That's using the power of this bonding for 20 years. I then did a capital reserve type analysis on the same thing, same exact numbers. Only difference is I started with $3 million that we have in cash reserves. I said, let's apply that in the first year as seed money to see what kind of money you have to give up to us to each one of these years in the next 10. We can't come up with a negative number. It's got to be positive. In other words, I have enough money to finance this as you go. And it was staggering. It took a $3 million investment in the first year to match the $3 million cash balance. It took another $3 million the next year, another $6 million in 24, $6 million in 25, $8 million in 26, $8 million in 27, and $3 million in 28, 29, 30, and 31. That equates to, and this is where these numbers get staggering, where under the debt financing methodology, I said originally that there was $15, you'd be collecting $500 from a single family this year. Next year, where you're collecting 62 or being billed 62, it's $1,000 or 500, another 500. Then it goes to 1,000, 1,350, 1,350. This is per single family home. Bottom line, when you're done over that 10-year period, you will have paid out roughly $4,000 in payments to finance this by debt financing on a 20-year period. And you paid out over $8,000 in assessments to pay for it as you go. I can't think of anything more drastic than that. If everybody wants to pay as you go and do that, and have the people that are here, right here in this room now, and will be for 10 years, paying for it so that the guy that comes in the 11th year, 12th year, 13th year gets it for free, I don't understand that methodology at all. It just does not make sense to me. Not whatsoever. But this is what the bond validation allows us to do, to borrow the money for 20 years and pass that cost on down the line. Everybody understands what's going on in the economy and everything else, but that doesn't mean life comes to an end and you stop. Just like your question on this building. We're renting space right now because we don't have space to put people in. We're renting space. That's the biggest waste of money there is. And if you think there's space around Gateway, we looked all over trying to find space. We were lucky what we got down there to pick up 1,500, 1,600 square feet. It's not what people think it is. Well, just go out there and rent it. You just don't go out there and rent it. It doesn't exist. Same thing with the storage building. I'd invite anybody after this meeting, go out here and look in this garage. This is our storage area. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And we aren't even housing half the equipment that we should be putting inside. We're running a business and we need to run it correctly. I know I take that very seriously. I thought for the last 15 years, this place was not run right. And I think we're now paying for it. We're picking up tab for costs, that stuff that was easy living because it was easy to kick the can down the road. And now we're picking up the tab. There's no more kicking it down the road. We need that building badly. We need space. You just can't, it's a fact of life in running a utility. And we have the greatest rates around this area, so I don't even want to take on anybody on utility rates because I'm going to win every time. Our rates are very good. They're very good. The issue is some of these things that are on this wish list, if you might call it, are very controversial. You mentioned the park. I'm one totally against that. But I also recognize that doing our job right, you don't ignore the fact that times may change. We might need that in the future. All this bond validation does is it allows us to debt finance it if and when we do it, instead of having to come up with cash. So I'm hoping that maybe that analysis shows why I'm so eager in the bond validation. I'm not ignoring the fact that every one of these items, whether it's $900,000 next year or $9 million 4 years out, every one of those have to come before this board to be debated. And everyone in this room is invited to come in and offer your comments when that issue comes up. But to sit here and say that we don't need certain things in here, especially when they're things that are just intuitively obvious that are needed, such as the building, I don't understand that, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But I did want to point out that there is a financial benefit, big time, to having this bond validation. The one example I didn't give you, and I didn't provide it because I thought it would just be absolutely ignorant, is that if you go to the bank for 5 years, these numbers just get hilarious of what you'd have to pay to finance this stuff in 5 years. But that's the statute we've been dealt. We can't do anything until we go out and do this bond validation process. It's not borrowing the money. That's a totally different step. It sets it up such that we can borrow it long-term if and when we need it. If you're worried about a board down the road and do your job as electors, don't put those people on the board. Don't put them on the board. When they're running, but that's kind of a challenge here at Gateway. It's just a mass exodus when it comes to trying to find somebody to run for election. Both board seats this year, unopposed. Unopposed. That's just, to me, is ridiculous. In a community like this of 12, 13,000 people, somebody ought to take the bull by the horns and say, hey, I'm running. I don't like what's going on. I think I got a better idea. It's easy to sit there in the cheap seats and make comments. It's real easy.
And
When
Ed,
you get over
Ed,
very
can you talk just for a minute about the level of effort and due diligence that's gone into preparing this this plan? You know, we've been looking at it for 2 years in depth with our experts, and probably a couple years even leading to that. And it was validated. I'd probably say 80% of the items on the list was validated through uh, the the capital reserve study that was done, you know, previously. Can you just take a minute so everyone understands the diligence that went into preparing this list of items in this plan?
Well, it's just the matter of this thing didn't happen overnight. We've been going for over a year, committees and people, the staff and the board directing Fred of we need to do this, we need to do that. Keep in mind, we started out this project the first time. The first time that Fred brought in a report, I think it was what, $58 million, Fred? 58 million on the construction. We went in and took a knife to it and cut out about 15, 16 million bucks of things that were truly not necessary in there. But I believe it's down to a number now that is a reasonable projection. Would I approve voting for a bond for it? No, not all of it, but I certainly would on some of it. But all that's down the road. That's down the road. This is not going to impact anybody for at least the next 2 years on dollar values on assessment.
And then when it does, I think it's important to you to go back to your numbers of what would impact you and at what cost. And we're talking about the $50, the $100, if it's all done on those numbers. I think everybody was thinking that it would be $1,000 or 700 every time, and that's not clearly what it is.
That's not true.
I think that's was one of the biggest problem.
Yeah, the 716 is the number that statutorily we had to tell everybody that if we borrow this money, and it's not just the 48 million or 45 million that Fred's showing in his report. That's what we call the soft cost, the engineering, the construction cost. We have the other bond related costs that takes this up to, what was it? Steve, what was it, about 57 million now for the total, including all the bond related costs?
Yeah.
I think that was the number, 57 million. So, and that was originally 75 million. So it's been hacked back, but bottom line, whether it's 55 million or it's 20 million or it's 2 million, none of that has been borrowed, and any decision made here is not approving one penny of debt tonight. Not doing that. It's setting it up that if we do have expenditure, we can debt finance it for 20 years.
And when the study was first decided, deliberated, debated, it was admittedly a wish list. What possible things could we need to service the community? And that's why you see things in here like, parks, recreation, landscaping, and some other items. But then there's the mandatory things. Like we know we have to spend a certain amount for waterway management. I mean, there's just no way around that. In the admin building, we've outgrown that. But nevertheless, get back to Ed's point. This was a broad, big picture item. Here's the absolute max. Because when you go through these exercises, it's very expensive just to do the exercise. So put in everything that you could possibly need, knowing full well every component will be voted on. Every component will come before the board before we spend a nickel. And then if there are objections and things, that's the time when it can be deliberated. And also, when we started to do this process, the environment was very friendly to get this long-term commitment for funds. That's radically changed. The cost of money today is not anything what it was, 24 months ago. But when we're taking the long-range picture, this 10-year CIP made sense. But here again, what are we actually going to spend? It'll be probably far less than what this says. But that'll be future boards that'll be deciding that. Might be a year from now, 2 years from now, but we're just getting a methodology in place to support the activity at the most cost-effective manner to our residents and to the community. And that's what this is trying to do.
Yeah, it's online in the capital reserve or the CIP study that's Tetra Tech prepared. It's online. Yeah. Yeah, and it's in the board packet also.
And every board member read or had available to them to read. I'm pretty sure we all did. I must have read 50, 55 pages of comments from the community.
Yes.
And I didn't really disagree with any of them. I don't want to spend the nickel. I'll be honest with you. But when you're sitting here and you have no choice and you see the kinds of decisions that led to the problems we had a couple of years ago, it was certainly unavoidable. We were lucky this time with Ian that we didn't have the flooding that we had with Irma. But part of that was luck and part of it was a storm. But it was also part of the actions that were taken over the last 2.5 years to make sure that our systems are more robust, that our pipes are clean, and that we can discharge the water. And we're still going to do more things in the next time as the adjustable weir project comes on. But these are not done in a vacuum. It's a composite picture, but it's very necessary for the community.
One,
Do you want to get the mic?
yes. Yeah, would you come to Mike? State your name, please.
We want to make sure we get your comments on record. We want to make sure you get your comments on record.
Absolutely. Phil Maloternal, Magnolia Lakes. On the bond interest rate, when is that set? Was that set prior, now, or in 2 years?
At the time we do the sale.
I'm sorry?
At the time we do the sale or have a sale.
When we get the money.
When we get the money.
So that's like in 2 years?
Well, at the time the bonds are issued.
Yeah, when the bonds are
When the
issued.
bonds are issued, and that's when you know that solid interest. I mean, there's a range, and Rhonda can explain that process. There's a range, not to exceed range that the board authorizes, and then Rhonda and her team go out to the market and see what the rates will be. Rhonda, is that accurate? I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, once we determine the size and the content of the first project, then we'll also determine things like the capitalized interest period that we want. We can't exceed 3 years of capitalized interest, but we'll probably be somewhere between 1 and 2 years of capitalized interest. And what that means is, as part of the bond proceeds, we'll put in there the interest expense during the construction period so that the assessments won't actually be on the first tax bill until 2025. So you'll be looking at, I think, according to Russ's numbers, probably in the neighborhood of $260 a year starting in 2025. So that's 2 years down the road, and that equates to like $22 a month per resident. So then each bond issue will get layered on after that. It'll go to the board. The board will determine what the next project looks like, how much capitalized interest they want to include in that, and so on and so forth until the project has been completed and the board has issued a certificate of completion for the entire project.
And those funds will be incremental each time, right? 22 the first time.
Right.
Next time it might be $30, and now it's 52.
Yeah.
So it just
Yeah.
keeps, as money is spent.
Yeah,
But
as
it's not
Rhonda,
at today's rates.
yeah, as Rhonda was indicating, the example I gave you, I was assuming we borrowed the money every year. That's not the way we're going to do it. We'll probably put it in groups of 3 years and then have a bond, and then another 3 years have a bond, and then maybe in 4 years have a bond. So, but the results are the same on the.
And that's correct. And we do that because you pay costs of issuance each time you do a bond issuance. And it's pretty much a fixed amount of money to pay all the attorneys to do the documents and review them, and the consultants to prepare the assessment reports and engineering reports. So you don't want to do that 10 times and pay 10 times X. You want to do that in 3-year increments and pay 3 times X. Does that make sense?
That add-on's about 27%. That's why you want to do it infrequently. So if you have a $10 million bond, you're going to be 27% above that on what you sell to cover the costs. You want to minimize that, like what she's saying. Hook it up, Tony.
Well, trying to get a hold of Russ again. You asked a specific question, only Russ can answer that question. His assessment methodology, he goes through his analysis as to the benefits and the resource for apportionment and to meet the legal requirements of validly impose it. And again, you've heard the collective recollection. We may stand to be corrected. Russ said, again, that's our recollection. They took that into account and was aware of it. And again, we don't want to be chasing to find out that that specific reference wasn't not included in his report.
Okay.
But again, only he can answer that question.
Okay.
That's our
Did you try?
recollection. Laura, is that your recollection, I think?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, Rhonda or Pedro, I think they've indicated they had the same recollection that Russ was aware of that and took that into account. But
Okay.
again, if Russ says otherwise, that's only he can say that.
Okay.
I mean, his report, I think, speaks for itself.
Let's go on.
Rhonda, Stephen, or Pedro, anything else on that point?
No, Toby. I know I would agree that Russ is absolutely aware of that. We would have to look at those two parcels individually, and we would be doing that anyways throughout the course of this process. But yeah, we would have to look at those independent.
To me,
sure.
it's a numbers game is all it is. It just changes the mechanics of the numbers. One's going to go up and one's going to go down. It's that simple. Tony, what is the timeline now that's associated with this? This action tonight of the board relative to this resolution is necessary so as to the next step is a court hearing?
Well, this is necessary to present to the court, to have the court issue a final judgment, validating the bond, validating the assessment methodology, validating the proceedings of this board in this process. And so the necessary step is for the board to close the public hearing and the board to consider and adopt resolution 2023-03. And I have two scrivener's errors that I'd like to correct. And then what I will do, I'll take this once the resolution is signed. I will then file that to the state attorney's office. I always put together a packet of all the exhibits so the state attorney's office can see it, the court can see it, and then when we go to the final hearing on the validation.
And that is
December 5th.
December 5th.
Yeah.
So is the next order motion of the board to
I think the board closed the public hearing.
close the
Public hearing
public
first.
hearing? Yes, is there a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I don't know, I didn't hear.
Is
Doug.
I don't think I heard Doug. He's
I
muted.
Mr.
didn't hear
Banks?
Doug.
He's muted.
So I put it three.
Mr. Banks, can you? Okay, thank you.
Make it 4.
There are two scrivener's
Yes,
resolutions.
what are the
two
scrivener's errors that are in the
And what we'd
motion?
like the board to do is to adopt resolution 2023-03 with the edits and corrections that I will note, as well as any other scrivener's errors of a non-substantive nature if we discover them during the course of the final review. On page 2, which is page 199 of your agenda packet, in section 2, small letter B, line 2, resolution 2012-19 should read 2022-29.
Tell me where I'm going to find that again, Tony.
It's on page 199 of the agenda packet.
Yep.
And it's the second line of section
B.
paragraph 2, be like in boy. It says, currently it says resolution 2012-19.
Okay.
It'll be corrected to 2022-29.
2022-29.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then if we can go to page 200 of the agenda packet, paragraph 2J. If we go to the second line, since that addressed in reference to the hearing being held October 6th, we'd like to have that first sentence read on October 6, 2020, in 2J, on October 6, 2022, at the time and place specified in resolution 2022-30, then we're going to add, and continued to November 3rd, 2022, the board conducted such public hearing. So we'll add the phrase, and continued to November 3rd, 2022, after the phrase resolution 2022-30. And what we're requesting is that the board to adopt resolution 2023-03 with these corrections and any other corrections of the scrivener's nature that we may find, and authorize the chair to sign.
Okay.
Rhonda, Pedro, anything else in that regard?
No, that sounds good.
Nothing,
Thank you.
nothing from me, Tony.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussion the board wants to have on proposed resolution 2023-03?
Nope. And I will make a motion that we adopt the resolution as written, 2020.
And is modified
And
by
modified.
Tony.
And with the correction of any other
And the
scrivener.
correction of any other scrivener errors.
And I'll second your motion.
Any other discussion, additions? Hearing none, all for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Do we adjourn this meeting
Well,
now and go back?
Did you handle, well, you can go back to the regular agenda. I guess item 15 is next. Is that it, Chelsea?
You already did that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we already did 15.
I must have stepped out during 15. Yes, so 17 is the next item.
Okay, which one are we on?
Adjournment.
Adjournment.
After all that.
Too much. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for
Aye.
coming to the. Thank you.